cold marble against his cheek. That's the first thing he feels. Not pain, not fear, just the cold of the white stone and the hum of hundreds of voices somewhere above his head. Ethan's son opens his eyes and sees a ceiling as high as a 5-story building. Crystal chandeliers, columns, 300 teenagers in formal uniforms stand in neat rows, and a glowing plaque hangs in the air above each of them. For some are red, some are blue, some are gold. He stands up and feels his whole body buzzing. The hands aren't his legs are longer than they should be. The skin on his palms is smooth, no calluses, no cuts, no torn strip of skin on the thumb of his right hand, the one he got 3 years ago when he was changing the chain on his mountain bike. He looks at his palms and realizes, these aren't his hands. This isn't his body. The last thing he remembers is an alley. Darkness. 2 men beating a man lying on the ground. He yells at them to stop. Then a quick blow to the ribs, then wet concrete beneath his back, and the sound of strangers' sneakers running away, then nothing. And now marble, chandeliers, someone else's hands, and a plaque above his head. He tilts his head back and looks up. A white rectangle hangs above him. Blank, no letters, no numbers, just a single line in small print at the bottom. Class, dash, rank, dash. People are already whispering around him. He hears snippets, empty, look, no class. Does that even happen? To his left stands a girl, beautiful. Dark hair down to her shoulder blades, the poise of a ballerina. Above her head, an inscription glows in gold. Holy Enchantress, Class A. She looks at his blank plaque, then at him, then she takes a step back. 1 step, a small one. But Ethan notices it. To the right of him stands a guy his age. Broad shoulders, a perfect haircut. His uniform fits as if it were tailor-made. A platinum glow surrounds him. Dragon Knight, Class SS, legendary. The hall erupts in applause. Someone shouts a name. Daniel Cho, heir to the Imperium Guild. The golden boy of his generation. Daniel smiles. Beautiful, confident. That's how people smile who have never doubted that the world belongs to them. Then he turns his head and looks at the girl to Ethan's left, at Mina, and Mina looks back at him. She takes another step away from Ethan, then another. Her hand slips into Daniel's. She says something quietly, without looking Ethan in the eye, something about honesty, about how it'll be easier this way, about how she thinks they'll all be better off if they don't pretend. Ethan doesn't hear the rest, not because it hurts. The pain comes later. Right now, he's standing in a stranger's body in the middle of a huge hall with an empty nameplate hanging above him, and 300 people around him have already decided he's nothing. He looks at the white rectangle above his head. Empty, like a blank sheet of paper. And somewhere deep within this new, foreign brain, a thought clicks into place. A blank blueprint isn't nothing. It's a sheet of paper that no one has defaced yet. He smiles slowly. The ceremony continues. 300 18-year-olds are assigned their ranks: C-rank healers, B-rank swordsmen, D-rank archers. Each plaque is a sentence for life. Some cry with joy. Some cry with grief. The system has dealt the cards and taken back the deck. Ethan stands in the 3rd row and watches in silence. He doesn't know the rules of this world yet. He doesn't know what ranks are. He doesn't know why guilds are necessary. He doesn't know why Mina's mother is now smiling and bowing to Daniel's father across the hall. But he knows one thing. In his past life, he took apart mechanisms that others considered broken. He found parts in them that still worked. He assembled things from scrap that worked better than new ones. If this world thinks that a blank plaque means the end, then this world doesn't yet know who it's dealing with. The ceremony ends. The crowd disperses. Parents hug their high-ranking children. Photographers snap pictures of Daniel. Mina stands next to him and smiles for the cameras. Ethan walks toward the exit alone. No one stops him. No one says goodbye. The guard at the door looks at his blank nameplate and doesn't even nod. It's evening outside. The city is enormous. Skyscrapers of glass and stone. Holograms of the largest guilds on the facades. Imperium, Outpost, Heavenly Ark. Billboards float between the buildings. Become a hunter. Protect humanity. Awaken. Ethan stands on the steps of the ceremonial hall and looks out at this world. 20 years ago, the rift occurred here. The underworlds burst open above the cities. Monsters poured out of them. For some people, the system awoke. Status, levels, classes, ranks. Governments built an entire economy around this. Your rank at Awakening determines everything: career, marriage, income, and place in society. S rank means magazine covers and contracts worth billions. F rank means rat holes on the outskirts for a pittance. E rank will never become A rank. This is a law proven by 20 years of statistics. The ceiling is set at Awakening and never shifts. Never. For anyone. And everyone accepts it. Ethan pulls a small card out of his uniform pocket. It has an address on it. The Sun family home. His home. The home of the guy whose body he's currently inhabiting. Memories come in fragments, not like a movie, like old photographs scattered across a table. His mother, she's sick, chronic magical exhaustion following failed therapy. His sister, Clara, 16 years old, an F-rank alchemist, poor health. Her hands shake when doing precision work. His fiancée, Mina, daughter of the vice president of the Peon Guild. His ex-fiancée. He makes it home on the last bus. A small apartment on the 4th floor with no elevator, floral wallpaper, a narrow hallway, the smell of medicine and homemade baked goods. The door opens before he has a chance to knock. A girl stands in the doorway. Slender, pale, big eyes, her hands are covered in flour. Behind her on the kitchen table is a plate of cookies, uneven, crooked, baked by hands that tremble. Clara looks up at him, and her face breaks into a smile. She asks how the ceremony went. She asks what grade he's in. She asks if he's a hero now. Ethan looks at this girl, at the flower on her cheek, at the cookies on the table, at the trembling fingers with which she's clinging to the door frame, and he understands. He doesn't care what the sign says. He doesn't care what Mina thinks. He doesn't care what this world has decided. He has a sister who baked him cookies. He has a mother who needs treatment. He has a mind that can count and hands that can assemble. He'll take the rest apart piece by piece, like an old machine. He'll find what works. He'll throw away what doesn't. He'll put it back together. He takes a cookie from the table. He takes a bite. It's lopsided, too sweet, a little burnt around the edges. The best thing he's ever eaten. He tells Clara there's no class. He says the grade sheet is blank. Clara freezes. Her eyes shine. She's silent for a second, then 2. Then she takes his hand and pulls him into the kitchen. She says it's nonsense. She says she got an F rank and it's no big deal. She says mom's asleep and they shouldn't make any noise. She says they'll figure it out tomorrow. Ethan sits down at the small kitchen table and eats a cookie. Outside the window, the city hums. Somewhere out there, Daniel Cho is giving an interview. Somewhere out there, Mina is smiling for the cameras. Somewhere out there, the world's largest guilds are dividing up contracts and influence. And here, there's a quiet kitchen and a girl who's put a second helping of cookies in front of him and is sitting across from him, her cheek propped up on her hand, covered in flour. At night, when Clara falls asleep, Ethan opens his status screen. He just thinks about it, and a semi-transparent window appears before his eyes. Name: and tan sun. Class, dash, rank, dash, strength, 8. Agility, 9. Stamina, 7. Magic reserve, 3. All stats are at the level of an ordinary person without awakening. Below the stats is a single word. Ability inheritance. No description, no numbers, no clues, just one word: inheritance. Ethan stares at that word for a long time. In his past life, he would have gone online and Googled it. Here, the internet as he knew it doesn't exist. But he has his brain, and there's a way to test any hypothesis. An experiment. He closes the status window. He lies down on the narrow bed in the small room. He stares at the ceiling. Tomorrow he has a school field trip to an F-rank dungeon. Slimes and goblins. The very bottom of this world's food chain. The safest place for his first experiment. He closes his eyes, and for the first time in a long while he's genuinely intrigued. The F-rank dungeon looks like the basement of a shopping mall after a flood. Low ceilings, green slime on the walls. Dull crystals on the ceiling give off light like dying light bulbs in a stairwell. A group of 20 trainees stands at the entrance, listening to the instructor, a man in his 40s with a C-rank patch on his sleeve. His face looks bored. His voice is monotonous. He explains that there are slugs and goblins inside, that even a child with a stick can kill a slug, that goblins are slightly more dangerous, but not by much, that the task for the trainees is to go through 3 halls and come back alive. He says this as if he were reading a grocery list. Ethan is standing at the back of the group. He's wearing standard trainee gear, a light leather jacket, a short sword made of cheap alloy, and boots that are a size too big. He looks at the sword in his hand and tries to remember if he's ever held a bladed weapon before. No, not once. In his past life, the most dangerous object he'd ever held was a soldering iron. The group goes inside. The first hall. 3 slugs the size of a soccer ball. Green, slow. The trainees rush at them in a crowd. Someone screams. Someone laughs. The slugs burst with a single blow, leaving behind small, murky cores the size of a pea. The instructor yawns. Ethan picks up one core. It's warm. It vibrates slightly in his palm. He brings it up to his eyes and examines it. Something inside the core is moving, like the liquid in a lava lamp. Slow. Lazy. He clenches the core in his fist. The pulsation intensifies from the warmth of his hand. He unclenches his fingers. The pulsation slows down. He clenches it again. It intensifies again. Temperature. The core reacts to the temperature. He puts the core in his pocket and moves on. The second hall. 5 goblins. Small. Gray skin. Yellow eyes. Wooden clubs in their hands. The trainees attack again. Goblins are meaner than slugs. One of them hits a trainee in the knee, and the trainee falls with a scream. The instructor lazily raises his hand and fires a thin beam of energy. The goblin flies into the wall and slides down it, dead. Meanwhile, Ethan isn't watching the fight. He's looking at the dead goblin by the wall. More precisely, at the moment of its death, a small flash, almost imperceptible. A spark of energy rises from the body and shoots upward towards the instructor. The system awards points to whoever killed it. Ethan sees this. He remembers it. The third hall. The last one. It's darker here. The ceiling is higher, and standing in the center is a creature larger than the rest. The goblin leader, about the size of a 10-year-old child. In its hands, not a club, but a crude stone axe. Around its neck is a necklace made of small beads. For the first time during the entire expedition, the instructor perks up. He says, this is the room's mini-boss. He says that under normal circumstances, E-rank hunters take him down in 3 minutes. He says the trainees should stay in the back. 3 trainees with higher classes rush forward. A D-rank swordsman, an E-rank archer, and an E-rank shield bearer. They surround the goblin leader. The swordsman strikes from the left. The goblin blocks with his axe. The archer fires. The arrow hits the shoulder. The goblin screams and lunges at the shield bearer. The shield bearer can't withstand the blow and is knocked backward. Ethan stands to the side and keeps count. 3 strikes from the swordsman, 2 arrows from the archer. 1 block from the shield bearer. The goblin is still on his feet, but he's wounded. His left leg has buckled. Blood is flowing from his shoulder. The axe in his right hand trembles. The swordsman swings his sword for the final blow, and at that moment, the goblin leaps, not forward, to the side, straight at Ethan. Yellow eyes, a stone axe above his head. A shriek echoes through the hall. Ethan acts not like a fighter, like a mechanic. The body is foreign, but the reflexes are already partly his. He takes half a step back. The axe whizzes past his face. The goblin loses his balance. Ethan grabs his cheap sword with both hands and strikes downwards. 1 blow. The blade pierces the base of the goblin's neck. A crunch. Silence. The goblin leader falls. And at that moment, Ethan feels it. A jolt, not a physical one. Deeper, as if something inside his body had shifted, as if the first drop had been poured into an empty vessel. He freezes. The others are shouting. The instructor says something about luck. The swordsman is angry that his kill was stolen from him. The archer looks at Ethan in surprise. Ethan doesn't hear any of this. He stands over the goblin's body and feels something warm, spreading through his body. Not magic, not strength, something else. Something new. He opens his stats. right here, right now. And he sees it. Strength, 8, now 9. Dexterity, 9, now 11. Stamina, 7, now 8. He killed the goblin leader with his strike, his final strike, and he gained a portion of its stats forever. He closes the status screen. His hands are shaking, not from fear, from realization. Inheritance. That's what it means. He inherits the strength of whoever he kills. The group returns to the surface. The instructor writes a report. The trainees disperse. The swordsman shoots Ethan a nasty look. The archer walks away without looking back. Ethan stands at the dungeon exit and thinks. 1 kill, plus 1 to strength, plus 2 to agility, plus 1 to stamina. That's from a weak F rank dungeon mini-boss. The absolute bottom of the barrel. The absolute trash. What if he kills something stronger? What if he kills something every night? What if his abilities have no ceiling, just as he has no class? He pulls the slime core he picked up in the first chamber out of his pocket. He squeezes it in his palm. It's warm, it pulses. It reacts to temperature. Ethan looks at the core and, for the first time in 2 days in this world, thinks about something other than survival. He thinks about how this world is full of things that people consider trash. Slime cores, F-rank dungeons, empty signs, people without classes. And he's the only one who knows there's no such thing as trash. There are just things that haven't found a use yet. That evening, he doesn't go home. He heads to the shopping district on the outskirts of town. Narrow alleys, junk dealers' stalls, buyers of trash loot from dungeons. It smells of cheap oil and old metal here. Ethan walks into a shop with a sign where half the letters aren't lit. The old man behind the counter looks at him over his glasses. Ethan says he needs slime cores. The old man laughs. He says nobody needs slime cores. He says they cost less than a bottle of water. He says the guilds throw them away by the sackful. Ethan buys 8 of them. He pays with the real Ethan's pocket money, which he found in a desk drawer. The old man shakes his head and wraps the cores in newspaper. On the way back, Ethan stops at a hardware store. The Silent Workshop Guild occupies a 2-story brick building in the industrial district on the western outskirts of the city. The first floor is the workshop, workbenches, a forge, and shelves with raw materials. The second floor houses the office and living quarters for those who have nowhere else to live. The sign above the entrance is barely hanging on. The paint is peeling. Half of the runes on the protective gate aren't working. Ethan stands in front of the building, staring at the gate. The runes are inscribed every half meter, a standard pattern. He can already see the problem. The induction losses between the runes are too high. The spacing is wrong. The barrier's efficiency is somewhere around 30% of possible. He goes inside. No one is behind the counter on the first floor. Metal clangs in the workshop. Ethan follows the sound. A woman stands at the workbench. She's about 26. Her dark hair is pulled back into a ponytail. Her apron is covered in soot. Clamped between the fingers of her left hand is a cigarette that went out long ago. She's striking a red-hot strip of metal with a hammer. Every blow is precise. Every one is measured. The metal sings beneath her hands. Ethan stands and watches. He knows good work when he sees it. It doesn't matter whether it's the world of magic or the world of bicycle chains. Hands that know how to do this are hands that know how to do this. The woman looks up. She looks at him, dark eyes, calm, a little tired. She asks who he is and what he wants. Ethan sets his tin can down on the workbench. He says it's a magical storage device. He says he built it from F-rank slug cores and copper wire. He says it holds a charge for 8 hours. The woman looks at the can, then at him, then back at the can. She picks it up, holds it to her ear, listens to the hum, runs her finger along the wire, puts the can back down. She's silent for about 10 seconds. Then she asks his name. He tells her, Ethan's son. She asks his rank. He tells her no rank, no class, a blank tag.
She falls silent again. Then she picks up an assessment amulet from the table, a standard guild device for reading stats. She holds it up to Ethan. The amulet flashes. A line appears on the small screen. Class blank, rank F, stats within the human range. The woman puts the amulet away. She looks at the jar. She looks at Ethan.
She says her name is Naomi Pack, that she's the guildmaster of the Quiet Workshop, a B-rank rune smith. She says the storage device is real and that she's never seen anything like it. She says that if he's not lying and assembled it himself, then he's either a genius or a madman. Ethan shrugs and says he's a nobody and doesn't even have a class. Naomi stubs out a long dead cigarette on the edge of the workbench. She says that the Quiet Workshop has a recycling one person, or rather 0 people, because the last one quit a month ago. She says the pay is low, that the work is dirty, that the guild is on the verge of closing down, that big manufacturers are squeezing them on prices, that she has nothing to offer him except a workbench and a roof over his head. Ethan says all he needs is a workbench. Naomi looks at him for a long time. Then she nods. And so Ethan becomes a recycling specialist in a guild that nobody knows about. He works his first week. He really works. In the morning, he sorts through the waste cores that Naomi buys in bulk on the cheap. In the afternoon, he experiments with temperature and pressure. In the evening, he assembles storage devices. At night, he leaves. Naomi notices that he leaves at night. She doesn't say anything. She just notices. Ethan's nights are a story of their own. He spends his first night in an F-rank dungeon by the river, alone. Sword in hand, darkness, slimes, lots of slimes. He kills them one by one. The final blow, every time the final blow, a thrust, a drop, +1, +2. Over the course of the night, he kills 43 slimes. The gain is meager, a fraction of a % from each, but it's there. It's real, and it adds up. On the second night, he heads to an E-rank dungeon. Mutant rats, faster than slugs. More vicious. They have sharp teeth and attack in packs. Ethan takes his first serious bite on his left forearm. Blood. Pain. He bandages his arm with a torn sleeve and continues. 17 rats in one night. The gain is slightly higher. His agility has increased by 4 points. His sense of smell has sharpened. He started to detect scents he hadn't noticed before. It's from the rats. He's not just inheriting numbers. He's inheriting traits. On the third night, he's back in the E-dungeon. Bats, cave bats, blind. They navigate by sound. Ethan kills 12 of them and emerges at dawn with a new sensation. Echolocation. Weak, fuzzy, but he hears the space.
He hears the walls. He hears the ceiling. He hears the distance to objects, like a bat. He arrives at the workshop in the morning, bruises under his clothes, a fresh cut on his ribs. Naomi sees him wince as he reaches for a part.
On the top shelf, she says, nothing. She sets a mug of coffee in front of him. A week later, Ethan brings home some money, his first paycheck from the workshop. A small one, but real. Clara takes the money with both hands and looks at it as if he'd brought home a gold bar. She says she'll take it to Mom for medicine. Ethan says he's already paid for a month's worth of medicine. Clara freezes. Then her eyes turn red. She turns away quickly so he wouldn't see. She says something got in her eye. Ethan pretends to believe her. At the end of the second week, he brings Clara a gift, an alchemical table. Small, wooden. He found an old school desk at the dump behind the workshop, took it apart, cut off the excess, adjusted the height to fit Clara's height exactly, attached sides so the test tubes wouldn't roll off, carved out recesses for each tool, and most importantly, 2 soft wrist rests, perfectly suited to her hands, to her trembling hands, so that when doing precision work, she could rest her hands on them and the tremor wouldn't get in the way. Clara stands in front of the table and touches the rests with her fingers. She's silent. She's silent for a long time. Then she sits down at it. She places her hands on the rests. She picks up a test tube. Her hands aren't shaking. For the first time in years, her hands aren't shaking while she's doing precision work. She lifts her head and looks at Ethan. and he sees something in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. Not gratitude, not surprise. Hope, a small one, fragile, but real. That same evening, Naomi calls him out to the backyard of the workshop. There's a bench, an ashtray, 2 tin mugs of tea. Naomi smokes and silently watches the sunset. Then, she says she saw his bruises. She says she knows he goes out at night. She says she doesn't care where he goes because that's his business. But she says that if he dies, she'll have to look for another scrap metal artisan again, and that's a hassle. Ethan stays silent. Naomi takes a drag. Then she says something else. She says that the drive he assembled last week, the one made from a can, she showed it to an acquaintance from the B-Rank Guild Northern Blade. The acquaintance couldn't believe it was made from scrap cores. He checked it 3 times. Then he asked how much it cost. Naomi quoted a price 10 times lower than market value. The acquaintance ordered 5 of them. Ethan looks at her. Naomi looks at him. She says that if he can make 5 a week, the workshop won't have to close. Ethan says he can make 10. Naomi chokes on the smoke. Then he asks what he needs to work. Ethan says a workbench, copper wire, access to scrap cores, and one thing just for him, a sword hilt made specifically to fit his grip. He has a callus right here on his right palm between his thumb and index finger. Standard hilts press against it, and his hand goes numb after 20 minutes. Naomi looks at his palm. She touches the callus. Her fingers are calloused from working with metal, but her touch is gentle. She remains silent. Then she says she'll do it. Ethan goes home. Naomi sits on the back porch and smokes her cigarette down to the filter. She can't remember the last time someone asked her to make something for a specific person. Not from a catalog, not by the book, for a living person with a callus on his right palm. She stubs out the cigarette butt. She goes to the workshop. She takes the best piece of raw material from the top shelf. The one she'd been saving for 3 years. She didn't know why she'd been saving it. Now she knows. She begins to work. And for the first time in a long while, her hands aren't making what the market demands, but what one specific person needs. The month passes like one long workday. Mornings in the workshop. Afternoons at the storage facility, evenings with Clara, at night the dungeons. Ethan sleeps 4 hours and feels no fatigue. His stamina stat has long since surpassed 40. A typical F rank has 10. A typical C rank has around 30. Ethan doesn't know these numbers because he has no one to compare himself to. He just knows that a month ago he was gasping for breath after 10 minutes of running. Now he can run for an hour and breathe steadily. The storage devices from the workshop are selling out. Northern Blade ordered another 20, a small guild from the suburbs, then another one, then a village, 40 kilometers from the capital, whose barrier had run out of power 3 months ago, and which didn't have the money for a new one. Ethan assembled a barrier module for them out of 30 processed cores. The cost of materials was 7,001. The market price for a similar barrier from a major manufacturer was $1.5 million. Naomi watched this in silence. Then she went to the backyard and smoked for 40 minutes straight. The workshop came to life. Naomi hired 2 assistants, a guy and a girl, both E rank with no prospects. Ethan trained them to process cores in 3 days. The process is simple: heating, aging, cooling, assembly. He wrote the instructions on a piece of paper and pinned it to the wall above the workbench. 6 steps. Nothing complicated. Anyone can do it. That's the whole point. You don't need an S rank to make useful things. You need a brain and a pair of hands. The nights had grown more dangerous. E-rank dungeons no longer provided a significant boost. Ethan began venturing into D-rank dungeons, alone. Without a group, without backup. He'd remember his first D-rank dungeon for a long time. An abandoned mine beneath a hill 20 kilometers from the city. Inside, swamp trolls, 2 meters tall, gray-green skin, small eyes, huge fists, and regeneration. A cut on a troll heals in 30 seconds. A hack wound heals in a minute. The only way to kill one is to deal critical damage that regeneration can't heal in time. or decapitated, Ethan stands at the mine entrance and stares into the darkness. He holds a sword with a new hilt from Naomi. The hilt is perfect. It fits in his palm like an extension of his arm. The callus doesn't press against his skin. His fingers don't go numb. Ethan silently thanks Naomi and steps into the darkness. The first troll appears 300 meters ahead. Huge, slow. It stands in the middle of the tunnel, munching on something off the floor. Ethan doesn't attack right away. He calculates distance, ceiling height, the width of the tunnel. The troll doesn't see him. Bat-like echolocation allows Ethan to move in complete darkness, navigating by sound. To the troll, he's invisible. Ethan closes the distance to 5 meters, 3 meters, 2, 1 strike. The sword pierces the base of the skull from behind. The troll falls without uttering a sound. A jolt, a drop, regeneration. Ethan feels it instantly. The cut on his left forearm, the one from the rat 2 weeks ago, is closing. Not quickly, not instantly, but noticeably faster than it should. He has inherited the troll's regeneration. A small percentage, a drop in the bucket, but it adds up. 4 trolls in one night, each finished off with the final blow. Each gave him a drop. Strength has surpassed 60. Dexterity is over 50. Stamina is over 45. Regeneration has gone from 0 to noticeable. Ethan emerges from the dungeon at dawn. His shirt is covered in blood. 2 cracked ribs. A bruise covering half his face from a troll's fist he didn't have time to dodge. An hour later, the cracked ribs stop hurting. 3 hours later, the bruise fades. Regeneration is working. By the end of the first month, his stats look like this. Strength 64, Agility 53, Stamina 47, Magic Reserve 12, plus passive abilities, heightened sense of smell, weak echolocation, basic regeneration, night vision from underground lizards, and increased heat resistance from fire beetles. To any evaluator in the world, he is still an F rank with stats within the human norm. Scanners can't detect him. His status is hidden. The blank nameplate serves as the perfect disguise. Mid-month, his first clash with the reality of this world occurs. Ethan goes to the grocery store. At the intersection near the shopping center, an outpost guild patrol is stationed. 3 hunters in uniform, C rank, B rank. They're checking passersby's IDs, standard procedure after a minor dungeon breakthrough in the suburbs. Ethan pulls out his card. The B rank hunter takes it, looks at it. Class, blank, rank, F, the quiet workshop. The hunter looks up. He looks down at Ethan. He says that an F rank had better not be walking the streets after a breach. He says Ethan's just getting in the way. He says that if a stray monster kills him, it'll mean a half-day's worth of paperwork. The 2 C ranks laugh. Ethan silently takes back his card. He walks away, doesn't look back. His fists are clenched in his pockets, not out of resentment, out of arithmetic. His strength is 64. This B rank hunter looks to be about 30 years old. The upper limit for B rank is around 80 in strength, maybe 90. In a month or 2, Ethan will be stronger than him. In half a year, he'll be stronger than any A rank, and not a single scanner in the world will show that. In the evening, he sits in his workshop and works on a new order, a barrier module for a farm in the south. The farmer came in person, an old man with a weather-beaten face. He said monsters from the nearest dungeon had taken to stealing his livestock. He'd approached 3 major guilds, but they all quoted a price he couldn't earn in 10 years. Naomi took the order for a tenth of that price. Ethan assembles the module and thinks about the farmer, about the village, whose barrier cost $7,000 instead of $1.5 million, about Clara, whose hands don't tremble over the alchemy table, about this world where the price of a human life is determined by the letter above one's head. He finishes the module by midnight, checks it 3 times. It works perfectly. He puts it on the shelf. The farmer will pick it up tomorrow. Then he grabs his sword. He puts on a dark jacket. He exits through the back door of the workshop. Today, he's heading to a C rank dungeon. For the first time, alone. According to the data he found in the public dungeon registry, the nearest C rank dungeon is located in the industrial zone across the river. Stone caves. Inside, stone walls, slow but sturdy. The standard clear-out tactic involves a group of 5 or 6 C rank hunters. The clear-out takes about 4 hours. Ethan is going alone. He enters the cave, darkness, silence. Echolocation maps out the contours of the walls, the smell of wet stone. The first golem stands 20 meters away, 3 meters tall, a stone body, glowing cracks at the joints, weak spots. Ethan spots them immediately. The cracks at the joints are where magic binds the stone together. If a crack, and the golem will fall apart. He doesn't rush into the attack. He takes his time. 3 cracks on the right knee, 2 on the left elbow, 1 large one on the neck. The neck. He approaches from the side. The golem is slow. It turns like a heavily loaded truck. Ethan is already behind it. 1 strike at the crack in the neck. The sword sinks deep. The stone creaks. The golem freezes. It falls apart into pieces. A jolt. Stronger than from a troll. Much stronger. His stamina jumps by 3 points. His heat resistance increases. He feels his skin becoming slightly denser, slightly tougher. Not like stone, but stronger than it was. 4 golems in 1 night. 4 jolts. By dawn, his stamina is 58. Strength is 71. He sits on a rock at the cave's exit and looks at his hands. Hands that weren't his, but have become his. A month ago, these hands couldn't hold a sword for 10 minutes. Now they shatter stone. A month ago, he was a nobody. Now he's still a nobody. On paper, according to the scanners, in the eyes of everyone who sees his blank ID tag. But the numbers in his stats tell a different story, and every night they speak louder. 3 months after the awakening. Ethan opens his status screen in the darkness of the dungeon and looks at the numbers. Strength 134, Dexterity 119, Stamina 108, Magic Reserve 34, Advanced Regeneration, Full Night Vision, Echolocation accurate to the centimeter, Predator level sense of smell, Enhanced Heat Resistance, Skin density increased by 40%, Reaction speed doubled. For reference, an average A-rank hunter has stats ranging from 100 to 150 across key attributes. Ethan is already within that range. In a couple of months, he'll exceed those limits. And not a single scanner in the world will detect it. Tonight, he ventured into a B-rank dungeon for the first time. Forest caves in the mountains 40 kilometers from the city. Inside are shadow wolves. Fast, intelligent, they hunt in packs. They coordinate their attacks. C-rank hunters go there in groups of 8 to 10 and still return with casualties. Ethan goes alone. The first pack encounters him 10 minutes after he enters. 6 wolves. Their black fur blends into the darkness. An ordinary hunter wouldn't see them. Ethan sees every one of them. His echolocation maps out 6 silhouettes in complete darkness. His sense of smell tells him where the 7th one is. Behind the rock on the left. Waiting. An ambush. Ethan doesn't charge head-on. He takes stock. 7 wolves. They're faster than him, but not by much. Their coordination is that of a pack. That means there's an alpha. Kill the alpha and the pack will lose its formation. The alpha stands in the center, slightly larger than the others, wider muzzle, brighter eyes. Ethan picks up a rock from the floor. He throws it to the right. The rock hits the wall. 3 wolves rush toward the sound. The pack splits for half a second. Ethan bursts through the gap, sword raised for a backhand strike. The alpha takes a blow to the throat before it has time to react. He falls. The remaining 6 freeze for a second. Then they scatter. Without their alpha, they don't attack. Power, speed, reaction time. Night vision. The alpha wolf provides a noticeable boost. 4 hours in the dungeon, 3 packs, 11 wolves. Ethan has 2 deep claw cuts on his back, 1 bite wound on his left shoulder. By the time he reaches the exit, his regeneration has already begun to heal the wounds. He makes his way to the surface and sits on a rock by the entrance. Mountain air, stars, silence. The blood on his jacket has already dried. He looks down at the city below, lights, guild holograms. Somewhere out there, Daniel Cho is sleeping in his penthouse. Somewhere out there, Mina is treating the wounded at a charity show. Somewhere out there, Naomi is smoking on the back porch of the workshop, waiting for morning. Somewhere out there, Clara is sleeping at her alchemy table because she couldn't stop herself again. Ethan gets up. He makes his way down the mountain. Another day of being a nobody lies ahead. Morning, the workshop. Ethan arrives at 7. Naomi is already there. She hands him a mug of coffee and a newspaper. The headline on the front page reads, "Mysterious Clearance of the Stagnation Gate in Kendo Province." Ethan reads on. Stagnation Gate, number 47, a C-rank dungeon that hadn't been cleared in 8 years. During that time, the boss inside had reportedly risen to B rank. 3 guilds had attempted to storm it. All 3 retreated with casualties. Last night, scanners detected that the dungeon was empty. The boss is dead. Its core has been gutted. No signs of a major battle. No corpses. No reports. As if someone had gone in at night, killed the boss, and left. Ethan folds the newspaper. This isn't his job. Not yet, anyway. He hasn't touched the stagnation gates yet. But someone is. Someone is going in alone, just like him. Or maybe it's a coincidence. Or maybe not. Naomi looks at the newspaper over his shoulder. She says this is already the 3rd incident in 2 months. She says the news is calling it the ghost of the gates. She says the major guilds are furious because every cleared gate means billions lost in potential contracts. Ethan nods. He takes note. He thinks. The day passes as he works. Orders have increased. A small guild from the province of Kendo, the very one where the gate was cleared, sent a request for 10 storage units and 2 barrier modules. A farm in the east is asking for a custom protective perimeter. A fishing village on the coast asks if he can make an underwater storage unit for their nets. Ethan takes on every order and builds it himself. Not off the shelf, tailored to each specific customer. He assembles the underwater storage unit for the fishermen from the cores of water slugs, which no one uses because they're unstable under standard processing. Ethan finds a way to stabilize them at low temperatures instead of high ones. The reverse process. Obvious if you think about it, but no one had thought of it. After lunch, a young woman, short, glasses, business suit, hair pulled back. She speaks quickly. She calculates even faster. She introduces herself as Jia Han, the daughter of the owner of a chain of magical pharmacies, a D-rank healer. She needs storage devices for the pharmacies, not combat grade, medical grade, to maintain the temperature of potions during transport. Standard coolers from major manufacturers are expensive and last only an hour. She needs something cheaper and longer lasting. Ethan listens. He asks 3 questions. What temperature is needed? What volume? Well, what is the transport distance? Gia answers instantly. She has all the numbers in her head. Ethan says he'll make a prototype in 2 days. Gia looks at him, then at the workshop around her, at the peeling walls, at the homemade workbenches, at Naomi, who's smoking by the door. She says she doesn't believe him. Ethan shrugs and says that in 2 days, she'll be able to disbelieve him with the prototype in her hands. Gia leaves. Naomi watches her go. She says that this girl calculates faster than a calculator. Ethan says that's good because he needs someone who can count money. He's bad at counting money. Naomi snorts and says that's true. In the evening, Clara comes to the workshop for the first time. She hadn't come before. She was shy. She was afraid her F rank would get in the way. Ethan shows her around the workshop, the workbenches, the forge, the shelves with raw materials. Clara walks around and touches everything with her hands. Then she stops at the rack with the cores. She picks one up. She sniffs it, holds it up to the light. She says it's a swamp slug core and that it's past its expiration date. Ethan freezes. He asks how she knows. Clara says she's an alchemist, F rank, but an alchemist nonetheless. She can sense the composition. It's her only talent, weak but accurate. Ethan looks at her, then at the shelf. There are 300 cores on it. He'd asked the supplier to bring only fresh ones. If Clara is right, and some of them are past their expiration date, then the supplier is cheating him. He asks Clara to check the entire shelf. Clara checks. Out of 300 cores, 41 are past their expiration date. 3% defective. Ethan calmly sets the defective cores aside in a separate box. Then he looks at Clara and says he needs an alchemist in the workshop. Part-time, after school. Clara opens her mouth, closes it, then opens it again. She asks if he's joking. Ethan says he isn't. He says he has 300 cores in his workshop, and no one but her was able to tell the fresh ones from the expired ones. He says that's no small talent. It's a talent that no one else in this building possesses. Clara stands in the middle of the workshop, small, pale. Her hands are shaking, but her eyes are burning. She nods. 2 days later, Ethan brings Gia a prototype of the medical storage device, a small cylinder made from processed water slug nuclei. It maintains a stable temperature for 12 hours. The production cost is 15 times lower than that of its market counterpart. Gia takes the cylinder. She checks it again. She takes off her glasses. She wipes it, puts them back on, looks at Ethan, says that if it's not a fake or a one-time prototype, she's ready to discuss a contract for regular supplies. Ethan says it's not a fake. 6 months after the awakening. The quiet workshop is no longer quiet. The line of customers stretches 3 weeks ahead. Naomi has hired 4 more artisans, all E rank, all with no prospects in the major guilds. All work as if their lives depend on it, because they do. The first floor of the workshop has been remodeled. New workbenches, shelving units with sorted cores, a separate corner for Clarice with her alchemy table, and 3 shelves of potions. The second floor is still shabby, but now the lights are on and it smells like coffee instead of mustiness. Money is coming in, not a lot, but steady. Ethan paid for his mother's treatment for the next 6 months. He transferred Clara to a better school. He bought Naomi a new hammer to replace the old one, which had a crack running across the entire head. Naomi accepted the hammer in silence. She turned it over in her hands. Then she looked at Ethan and told him he was an idiot because the hammer cost more than his monthly salary. Ethan said it was an investment in production. Naomi snorted and went into the forge. An hour later, the sound of metal ringing out from there, so clear and even that Ethan had never heard anything like it before, filled the air. The hammer was just right. With the workshop's left side, it's spreading through the smaller guilds like a crack in glass, quietly but unstoppably. Barrier modules for pennies, storage devices that last longer and cost less, medical thermal containers for J pharmacies, custom orders tailored to specific hunters. The latter has become his calling card. Ethan doesn't know how to work from a catalog. He crafts every item to suit the individual. An E-rank swordsman with arthritis in his right wrist comes in. Ethan makes him a hilt with a shock-absorbing insert made from a processed slug core that dampens recoil upon impact. A D-rank archer with astigmatism comes in. Ethan builds a microlens made from a polished cave crystal core into her sight to correct the focus. An old F-rank shield bearer who was expelled from the guild due to his age comes in. Ethan overhauls his shield like an old engine. He replaces the mounts. He lightens the frame. He installs 3 storage units so that the barrier activates automatically upon impact. The old man takes the shield and can't believe his eyes. He says it's half as heavy and works better than when it was new. Ethan says that old things aren't any worse than new ones. It's just that no one wants to bother with them. Every evening after work, he sits on the back porch with Naomi. She smokes. He drinks tea. They're silent. Sometimes Naomi says something about orders, about metal, about how a new shipment of cores will arrive on Thursday. Sometimes Ethan asks her about runes, which rune she dreams about at night. Naomi doesn't answer right away. She says there's one, the rune of resonance. In theory, it can triple the power of any magical tool. In practice, it's impossible to inscribe because it requires a metal that conducts both magic and heat simultaneously without loss. Such a metal isn't available on the open market. It's a monopoly held by the major guilds. Ethan takes note. He doesn't say anything. He just takes note. The nights. The nights have changed. Ethan no longer farms low-level dungeons. B-rank dungeons yield too little. He switched to A-rank dungeons. The first A-rank dungeon nearly killed him. A mountain fortress 200 kilometers from the capital. Inside were stone knights, full-fledged fighters with weapons and tactics, not mindless monsters. Warriors. The first knight attacked Ethan with a 3-strike combo, sword, shield, and a shove. Ethan blocked the first strike and dodged the second. The third hit him in the chest. He was sent flying 5 meters and slammed into a wall. 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, blood in his mouth. Regeneration patched up his lung in 10 minutes. His ribs in half an hour. But for those 30 minutes, he lay in the dark, listening to the knight pacing the hall, searching for him. Step, step, step. Stone feet on a stone floor. Ethan lay there and thought, not about death, about tactics. The knight is fast, faster than a troll, faster than a golem, but he has a pattern. 3 strikes, always 3. Sword, shield, thrust. After the thrust, a pause. Half a second, that's enough. When his ribs had healed, Ethan stood up. He came out of hiding. The knight lunged at him. Sword. Ethan moved to the left. Shield. Ethan ducked under the right arm. Shove. Ethan stepped to the side. A pause. Half a second, Ethan's sword slipped into the gap at the back of the knight's neck in a single motion. Precise, like a hammer striking a nail, the knight collapsed. Shove, powerful, stronger than anything before. Strength jumped up by 8 points, dexterity by 6, and something new. Combat intuition, not a skill, not a technique, a sensation. As if his body had begun to see the blows a second before they happened. The legacy of the Stone Knight. He cleared out the fortress in 3 nights, 18 knights, 2 lieutenants, 1 mini-boss. Each one contributed a drop. By the end of the 3rd night, his stats looked like this. Strength 186, Agility 173, Stamina 159, Magic Reserve 48. The A-rank ceiling is around 200. Ethan was already close. In a month, he'll surpass it. And then his stats will go beyond what is considered possible in this world for any living hunter. One day, Ethan decides to test his theory. He heads to the industrial district across the river and finds Stagnation, gate number 112, a C-rank dungeon that had been stagnant for 11 years. According to analysts' predictions, the boss inside had long since grown to A-rank rank. 3 major guilds had applied to raid it. All 3 backed out after scouting it. Too expensive, too risky, too little profit. Ethan enters at night, alone. The dungeon is old. The walls are overgrown with glowing moss. The air carries the sour smell of stagnant magic. The monsters inside have mutated. Over the past 11 years, slugs the size of a car, goblins with stone-hard skin, rats with poisonous spikes on their tails. Ethan cuts through them like a knife through butter. He finishes each one off personally. Each one yields a drop, a small one, but a drop nonetheless. The boss awaits in the final chamber. Huge, a creature resembling a stone scorpion, 6 meters long, armor made of mineralized magic. A tail with a stinger as thick as a lamppost. 2 claws, each the size of a desk. The fight lasts 40 minutes. Ethan breaks his left arm, 3 deep cuts on his back from the tail, a burn on his right thigh from an acid spit, but he's counting patterns, counting pauses, counting weak spots. The carapace is impenetrable, but beneath it are joints. Soft joints, like a crab's. Ethan strikes at the joints, the first one, the second one, the third. The scorpion loses mobility. It collapses onto its right side. Ethan climbs onto the carapace. He finds a gap between the plates at the back of its head. He drives the sword in up to the hilt. The scorpion freezes. It falls. A jolt. A massive one. Ethan has never experienced anything like this before. His whole body is on fire. Every cell is vibrating. The carapace. He feels his skin hardening. Not like before, many times stronger. Acid resistance, seismic sensitivity, the ability to sense earth vibrations from 20 meters away. A gift from a 17-year-old boss. Ethan sits next to the dead scorpion and breathes. Regeneration is mending his fractures. In an hour, he'll be able to walk. The news breaks 3 days after the cleanup of Gate 112. The stagnation gate has been cleared by an unknown entity. 11 years of stagnation. An A-rank boss destroyed in a single night. No traces, no reports, no guild members' bodies. Journalists are going crazy. The ghost of the gate strikes again. The 4th incident in half a year? Who is he? Where is he from? How? Ethan reads the news over his morning coffee in the workshop and silently turns the page. On the second page, another story. The government's special commission investigating the activities of the unknown hunter has been granted expanded powers. The commission's head is General Park. The deputy in charge of analytics is Haley Morgan, a foreigner, 22 years old. Next to the text is a photograph, blonde hair, cold eyes, a business suit, the face of someone accustomed to reading reports rather than people. Ethan memorizes the name, memorizes the face, turns the page. On the third page is an interview with Daniel Cho. The heir to the Imperium announces that the guild is forming its own investigative team to search for the ghost of the gates. Daniel speaks eloquent words to the camera about safety, about the law, about how an uncontrolled hunter poses a threat to everyone. In reality, Ethan realizes that Daniel doesn't give a damn about safety. Every stagnation gate is a potential contract for the Imperium. Every gate cleared by the ghost means billions lost from the guild's market capitalization. The ghost is hitting Daniel in the wallet, and Daniel won't forgive that. That evening, Sonya Lee comes to the workshop. Ethan hears her before he sees her. Heavy footsteps, a loud voice. The door swings open so hard that the bell above the lintel jingles. A girl stands in the doorway, short, stocky, short hair, a tanned face, a worn backpack stuffed to the brim slung over her shoulder, a cheap sword in a cracked scabbard hangs from her belt. She looks around the workshop and speaks loudly. She says she needs a barrier for her village. She says she's come from the countryside. She says she heard about the quiet workshop from a hunter she knows. She says she doesn't have much money. Naomi steps out of the forge. She looks at the girl. She asks which village it's for. Sonya names it. A small fishing village on the west coast, 200 residents. The nearest dungeon is 5 kilometers away. E rank. Small monsters sometimes make their way out and attack the outskirts. The old barrier ran out of power 2 years ago. The village reached out to 3 guilds. All of them quoted a price the village couldn't raise in 5 years. Sonya recounts this in an even voice, without emotion, as a matter of fact. But Ethan sees her clenching the strap of her backpack. Her knuckles are white. Naomi says they'll take care of it. She names a price. Sonya does the math in her head. She nods. She says she'll pay for it herself out of her hunting earnings. Ethan asks why she's paying for it herself instead of the village. Sonya is silent for a second. Then she says that her younger brother died a year ago. An escape from the dungeon, a cheap barrier that the village bought from a major guild at a discounted price, didn't hold up. The barrier was defective. The guild knew it. They sold it anyway. Her brother was 14. She says this in the same even tone. Then she falls silent. Ethan looks at her worn backpack, at the crack in the scabbard, at her hands which are clenching the strap so tightly that her knuckles have turned white. He says the barrier will be ready in a week and that he'll go personally to install it. Sonya looks up, she looks at him, she asks why he needs to go in person. Ethan says the barrier needs to be calibrated on site. Every village is different. The terrain, the soil, the underground background noise. If he doesn't calibrate it in person, its effectiveness will be cut in half. That's true. But it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that Ethan wants to see the village, to see the place where a 14-year-old boy died because someone sold defective equipment to his village. Sonya nods. She leaves. She promises to return in a week. Naomi watches her go. Then she looks at Ethan. She says he's working for free again. Ethan says it's not for free. He says it's marketing. Naomi snorts. The week passes as they work. Ethan assembles a barrier module for the village, not a standard one, a reinforced one. 20 cores instead of 10. Naomi's new rune, the resonance rune from the Scorpion core, triples its power. This barrier will withstand not an E rank breakthrough, but a C rank one. With room to spare, the cost of materials is 12,001. The market price for a comparable product from a major manufacturer is 4 million. At the same time, Ethan is working with Clara and Gia on a treatment plan for Gia's father, a magical illness, chronic destruction of internal channels. Arank healers say it's not cost-effective. Ethan says that not worth the effort is their term, not his. He approaches the problem as a mechanism, not a cure, a support system, 10 small items, a stabilizer that regulates the magical background in the bedroom, a water filter that removes impurities that irritate the channels, 3 of Clara's potions, each for a specific symptom, gloves with micro runes for when his fingers go numb, a pillow with a water slug core to maintain body temperature at night, a neck amulet to stabilize blood pressure, cushioned insoles for walking, a sleep mask with micro runes that relieve headaches. Each item costs next to nothing. Each solves one specific problem. Together, they don't cure the illness, but they make life bearable. Gia comes to pick up the set. Ethan lays out all 10 items on the table. He explains each one, what it's for, when to use it, and how. Gia listens. She takes notes, then she takes off her glasses. She wipes them for a long time. Ethan notices that the lenses are wet, and not from water. Gia puts her glasses back on. She says, "Thank you," briefly, dryly, like in a business letter. But her voice trembles. She leaves with the box in her hands, and Ethan knows that this box is worth more than any contract. A week later, he travels with Sonia to set up the barrier. A night train, 4 hours. Sonia sits by the window and watches the lights rush by. She's silent. Ethan sits across from her and is silent too. He's thinking about the barrier, about the settings, about how to position the modules around the village's perimeter. Sonia is thinking about her brother. He can tell by the look in her eyes. The village is small, 200 people, houses made of wood and stone, the smell of the sea, a pier with fishing boats. On the outskirts, a new fence made of planks. Behind it, a hill. Beyond the hill, the entrance to the dungeon. Ethan walks around the village's perimeter. He measures distances in steps. He checks the magical background. He tests the ground. He drives in stakes. He sets up modules. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. He connects them with wire. He activates them. The barrier glows with a soft blue light. A dome covers the entire village. The residents come out of their houses. They look up. An old man on the porch of the nearest house takes off his hat and stands silently, holding it in his hands. A woman by the well clutches her child to her chest and cries. 2 years without the barrier, 2 years of fear at night. Sonia stands next to Ethan and looks at the barrier. Her face is calm, but her hands are trembling. She says quietly that she wishes the barrier had been there a year ago. Ethan says nothing. He checks the modules. Everything is working, stable, reliable. On the train ride back, Sonia falls asleep slowly. First, her head nods. Then her eyes close. Then her head rests on his shoulder, gently, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ethan doesn't move. He sits and looks out the window. Outside the window, dawn is breaking, pink, quiet. Sonia's breathing is steady. For the first time all day, there's no tension on her face. Ethan thinks about how there are things in this world more important than the numbers in his status. Then he thinks about how in 12 hours he'll head back into the dungeon, and the numbers are important too, because without them, he won't be able to protect what matters. 1 year after the awakening, Ethan opens his status screen in the darkness of yet another dungeon. Strength 247. Agility 231, stamina 218, magic reserve 89. These numbers are beyond A rank, beyond what is considered possible in this world for any hunter except those with legendary and mythical classes. Daniel Cho, with his SS rank legendary dragon knight, is estimated by analysts to have a strength of around 280. Ethan is almost caught up, and he continues to grow. Every night, every monster he kills, every drop. He's switched to the stagnation gates as his primary source. Over the past 3 months, he's cleared out 6 of them. All at night, all by himself, all without a trace. The ghost of the gates has become a national topic. Talk shows discuss him every evening. Experts argue. Some say he's a foreign agent from abroad. Others say he's a covert SS rank operative working for a shadowy organization. Still others say it's a group, not a single person. No one suspects it's a 19-year-old guy with no credentials from a small workshop on the outskirts. An invitation arrives in the mail. A white envelope, gold foil stamping, the logo of the Hunters Chamber of Commerce, the annual reception for leading manufacturers of magical equipment. The quiet workshop has been invited as the very same storage device craftsman everyone's been talking about. Naomi reads the invitation and says it's a trap, that the big manufacturers want to take a closer look at them, to evaluate them, to figure out how a small workshop makes things cheaper and better. Ethan says they're going. Naomi says she doesn't have a dress. Ethan says he doesn't either. Naomi snorts. The reception is held at the Grand Crystal Hotel in the center of the capital. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, men in suits, women in dresses, a guild badge on every other lapel. Imperium, Outpost, Heavenly Ark, Lotus. Steel Guard. Ethan is wearing the only decent suit Naomi borrowed from an acquaintance. The sleeves are a bit short, his shoes are polished but worn. He stands by a column with a glass of water and watches. An engineer's habit. Observe first, then act. Naomi is standing nearby. She looks different in that dress. Not worse, not better, just different, like a blacksmith's hammer in a velvet case. She stands upright. Her back is straight. Her face is calm, but Ethan sees how she's clutching the glass. She's uncomfortable. 20 years ago, these people wouldn't accept her into any respectable guild, and now she stands among them in a borrowed dress. People approach them. Representatives of smaller guilds, clients, grateful customers. A farmer from the south, whose barrier has been working nonstop for 3 months, shakes Ethan's hand and says that for the first time in 2 years have been sleeping peacefully at night. Ethan smiles. Then he appears, Daniel Cho, an impeccable suit, a perfect smile, an entourage of 4. He walks across the hall, and people part before him like water before a ship. Mina is by his side, a white dress. Her hair is styled. Around her neck, a thin chain with the symbol of the Imperium. She's beautiful, and she's miserable. Ethan sees it instantly, not on her face, on her hands. Mina is clasping her hands in front of her. That's what she used to do in school when she was nervous, when she wanted to leave but couldn't. Daniel approaches Ethan. He looks at his badge, the quiet workshop, equipment technician, Ethan's son. Daniel extends his hand. He smiles. He says he's heard a lot about the workshop. He says their storage devices have made an impression on the market. He says it's a good job for a small company, indulgent, warm, like an adult praising a child for a drawing on the fridge. Ethan shakes his hand. Daniel's handshake is strong, deliberately strong, a demonstration. Ethan could have squeezed back hard enough to make his bones crack. His strength is 247. Daniel's is around 280. The difference is already small. But Ethan shakes his hand gently, just as an F rank should. Daniel doesn't recognize him, doesn't remember him. The guy with the blank name tag at the awakening ceremony. The ex-fiancée of his current girlfriend, wiped from his memory like dust off a table. Mina stands a step behind Daniel. She looks at Ethan, and she recognizes him. Her eyes widen, her lips part slightly, then she pulls herself together. Her face becomes calm, but Ethan sees it. She recognized him, and she didn't expect to see him here. Daniel walks on. Mina follows him, half a step behind. She turns around once, quickly, then turns away and disappears into the crowd. Ethan finishes his water. He sets the glass on the tray. He turns to Naomi. Naomi looks at him. She's silent. Then she says, "Mina is beautiful." Ethan says yes. Naomi asks if it hurts. Ethan thinks for a second. He says no, it doesn't hurt. It's just strange. Like looking at an old photo from someone else's album. All right. Naomi nods. She doesn't believe him, but she nods. An hour later, they leave. In the hotel parking lot, Ethan spots a black car. Tinted windows, special commission license plates. No one's behind the wheel, but there's a folder on the passenger seat. He can see the cover through the glass. The Ghost of the Gates case, marked confidential. Ethan walks past. He doesn't stop. He memorizes the car's license plate number. The special commission is holding a reception. It makes sense. They're looking for the ghost, and the ghost could be among the equipment manufacturers, among those who have access to the underground facilities, among those who know how they're set up. Haley Morgan is somewhere in the hall. Maybe she was looking at him. Maybe she's already jotted his name down in her notebook. The next day, Mina comes to the workshop, alone, without security, without the Imperium logo, in a plain jacket and jeans. She stands in the doorway and looks at Ethan. She stares for a long time. Then she says she wanted to see where he works. Ethan shows her around the workshop. The workbenches, the forge, the shelves, Clara's corner. Mina walks around and looks. She touches the tools. She picks up the flash drive. She turns it over in her hands. She puts it back. Then she says she regrets it. She says that at the ceremony, she made a choice and that this choice was a mistake. She says that next to Daniel, she's not a person, but an accessory, that her treatment is being used for PR stunts, that she spends her days smiling for the cameras and her nights lying in the dark, thinking about who she's become. Ethan listens. He says nothing. Then he walks over to the workbench. He picks up a small amulet he made yesterday, a protective one, tuned to white magic, exactly the kind used by the holy enchantress. He hands the amulet to Mina. He says it's not for them. He says it's so she can walk home alone at night. Mina takes the amulet. She looks at it, small, unassuming, made precisely for her magic, tuned to her frequency, tailored to her. She says nothing. Then she clenches the amulet in her palm. Then she leaves, quickly, without looking back. Ethan stands at the workbench and watches the door close. Naomi comes out of the forge. She says she heard everything. She says he's an idiot. Ethan asks why. Naomi says it's because he made an amulet for his ex. And the look on his face was as if he were soldering a microchip instead of saying goodbye to a person. Ethan is silent. Then he says he wasn't saying goodbye. Naomi looks at him. Then she shakes her head. She goes into the forge. She closes the door. A minute later, the sound of a hammer rings out from inside, louder than usual. A call from Gia comes in at 3 a.m. Ethan has just returned from the dungeon. The blood on his jacket hasn't dried yet. The cut on his side is still healing. Gia speaks quickly. Her father is unwell. Worse than usual. Seizures. A fever of 40. The channels are deteriorating faster than expected. The high-ranking healer she summoned took a look and said there was nothing he could do. He said the treatment would cost as much mana as he'd spend on 10 patients who could pay. He apologized and left. Ethan says he'll be there in 20 minutes. He gets there in 15. Gia's house. It's big, once wealthy. Now it's clear that the money is going toward medical treatment. The furniture is old. The rugs are worn. There are marks on the walls where paintings used to hang, the ones that were sold. Gia meets him at the door, without her glasses. Her eyes are red. Her hair is disheveled. She's wearing a casual t-shirt and wrinkled pants. It's the first time Ethan has seen her without a business suit. She looks her age, 20, not 30, as she usually does. Her father is lying in the bedroom. He's thin. His skin is sallow. His hands are shaking. His eyes are closed. He's breathing heavily. On the nightstand next to him are all 10 items from the set Ethan had put together. The storage device is running, the filter is running, Clara's potions are lined up, half empty. Everything is working, but the disease is stronger. Ethan sits down next to the bed. He looks at the old man, and then he opens the status screen, not his own, the patient's. He learned how to do this a month ago. One of the abilities he inherited from an A-rank monster scanner allows him to see another person's magical aura, not the status, not the numbers, but the body's energy pattern. Father Gia's channels look like old wiring in an abandoned house. Cracks, breaks, leaks. Magic seeps from them like water from a leaky hose. Ethan counts. 12 main channels, 7 are damaged, 3 of them critically. Standard treatment involves repairing each channel individually. An A-rank healer infuses mana and seals the crack. Expensive, time-consuming, and pointless, because the channels crack again in a week, Ethan thinks. Not as a healer, like an engineer. Wiring in an old house. Replacing each wire individually is useless if the problem is the voltage. The voltage in the circuit is too high, and the wires can't handle it. You don't need to replace the wires. You need to lower the voltage. The magical background in Gia's father's body is unstable. Pressure surges, peaks. The channels can't withstand the peaks. If the peaks are eliminated, the channels will stop breaking down. The body's regeneration will do the rest, slowly, but it will do it. Ethan looks at the storage drive on the nightstand, then at his hands, then back at the channels. He needs a stabilizer, not an external one, an internal one, something that will smooth out the spikes in magical pressure from within. He pulls 3 cores out of his backpack. Not junk ones, good ones. B-rank cores from the water elementals he killed last week. Water magic is gentle, enveloping, perfect for stabilization. He works on the cores right in Gia's kitchen. Heating, cooling, polishing. 40 minutes of work. 3 small stones. Smooth, cool, pulsing with a soft blue light. He strings them onto a thin silver thread. The result is a bracelet. Simple, ugly, but functional. He slips it onto the old man's wrist. The stones begin to pulse in time with his heartbeat. They synchronize. 5 minutes later, Ethan sees the magical background in the old man's body stabilize. The spikes smooth out. The channels stop trembling. The old man's breathing evens out. His temperature begins to drop. Gia stands in the doorway and watches. She says nothing. Ethan explains that this isn't a cure. It's a stabilizer. As long as the bracelet remains on his wrist, the channels won't deteriorate any further. The body will begin to repair them on its own. Slowly. It might take months, maybe years, but it will happen. He says the stones need to be replaced every 2 weeks. That Clara can make new ones following his instructions. That this isn't a miracle. It's physics. Magical, but still physics. Gia listens. She nods. She takes notes. Then her pen stops. Her hand trembles. She puts a period. She closes her notebook. She says thank you in the same businesslike voice, but Ethan sees that her chin is trembling. He stands up. He says he's leaving. He says he'll call in the morning. He walks toward the door. Gia catches up to him in the hallway. She says she wants to ask one thing. She asks who he really is. Ethan stops. He turns around. Gia is standing in the hallway, small, without her glasses. Barefoot. She says that an F rank without a class can't see the magical background. Can't handle B rank cores with bare hands. Can't know what he knows. She says she's a quick thinker, and the numbers don't add up. Ethan looks at her. She's smarter than he thought. Much smarter. He says he's a master from the quiet workshop. He says he has good intuition. Gia shakes her head. She says she doesn't believe him, but she doesn't press the issue. She says it's none of her business. She says only one thing matters to her, that her father is breathing steadily for the first time in 3 months. Ethan nods. He leaves. It's nighttime outside. He walks home. He thinks. Gia asked the right question. Sooner or later, someone will ask it again, and sooner or later, someone will have to tell the truth. But not today. In the morning, a visitor arrives at the workshop. A woman? Blonde hair, cold eyes, a business suit. Haley Morgan, an analyst for the government's special commission on the Ghost of the Gates case. She stands at the counter and surveys the workshop, calmly, methodically, like a scanner scanning the room. Naomi steps out to meet her. She asks how she can help. Haley says that the special commission is conducting an inspection of all workshops with access to monster cores. Standard procedure. Nothing personal. She needs the documents for core deliveries. The client list, financial reports. Naomi silently gathers the papers. Ethan is standing at the workbench, working. He doesn't look up. Haley walks past him. She stops. She looks at his hands, at how he's working on the core, at his tools, at his workbench. Then she asks his name. Ethan answers. She writes it down in her notebook. She asks his rank. He answers F. No class? She writes it down. She looks at him for another second, then she walks on. She leaves half an hour later with a folder full of copies. Naomi watches her go. She says that woman has X-ray eyes. Ethan agrees. Haley really did look at him a little longer than she did at the others. A little more intently. Is it an analyst's professional bias or something more? He doesn't know, but he makes a mental note of it. That evening, Sonia comes to the workshop after hunting. Dirty, tired, hungry. She's had nothing but a piece of bread since morning. Ethan can tell by the way she looks at the leftovers from lunch on Clara's table. He silently heads to the kitchen. The workshop is small, but it has a kitchen, a stove, a refrigerator, 5 plates. He cooks. Simple, quick, rice, meat, vegetables. Sonia gets a double portion. Clara gets a mild, unspiced version. She has a sensitive stomach. Naomi gets it a little spicier. She's sniffling today, but won't admit she has a cold. Gia stops by on her way home from work to pick up a new batch of stones for her father's bracelet. She doesn't want any mushrooms. She has an intolerance she hasn't told anyone about, but Ethan noticed. A week ago, she pushed a mushroom to the edge of her pizza when she thought no one was looking. Ethan saw it. Haley Morgan shows up unexpectedly. She knocks on the workshop door at 8 o'clock in the evening. She says she forgot to pick up one copy. Naomi lets her in. Haley sees the table. 6 plates, 6 people. Food. Ethan silently sets a 7th plate in front of her with a lemon. Why with a lemon? He can't explain. Something in her face? The way she holds her back, the way her lips tighten slightly when she smells the sour scent from the kitchen. Not disgust, longing. She loves lemon, but never allows herself to have it. Haley looks at the plate, then at Ethan. Then she sits down. No one says anything. Everyone eats. Mina is the last to arrive. By chance. She was walking by. She saw the light. She came in. Ethan places a plate in front of her, the very same meal she used to love in the school cafeteria. Rice with egg and sesame oil. A simple meal, a child's meal. Mina looks at the plate and doesn't look up for a long time. Everyone eats in silence. 7 people at the table in a small workshop. Naomi, Clara, Sonia, Gia, Haley, Mina, Ethan. Outside the window, the city at night, the lights of the guilds, holograms, advertisements. And here, a quiet kitchen and food prepared by the hands of a man who knows everyone at this table better than they know themselves. Every plate is different, each one tailored to a specific person. And by the end of dinner, each of them realizes something to themselves that they hadn't put into words before. That someone sees, that someone remembers, that someone cared, silently, without words, without explanations. They simply set down a plate and sat down next to them. A year and a half after the awakening, Ethan stands deep within A-Rank Stagnation Dungeon number 78, staring at the boss's corpse, a giant ice serpent and 12 meters long, scales as thick as a palm. Each scale is a layer of mineralized ice that doesn't melt at room temperature. The battle lasted an hour. Ethan suffered frostbite on his left arm up to the elbow, 3 broken ribs, a laceration on his thigh from the tail. Everything is already healing. Regeneration is working. The snake's thrust is powerful. Cryo-resistance, the ability to move silently. Spinal flexibility increased by 30%. Stats: strength 312, agility 298, endurance 287, magic reserve 134. These numbers are beyond the legendary rank. Based on statistics, Ethan is already stronger than Daniel Cho. Stronger than any hunter in the country, possibly stronger than any hunter in the world. And not a single scanner detects this. He is the 9th stagnation gate in the last 6 months. Journalists believe it. The government believes it. The guilds believe it. Everyone is searching for the Phantom. No one is finding him. Ethan cuts out the snake's core, puts it in his backpack. He emerges to the surface. Dawn, mountains, silence. He sits down on a rock and drinks water from his canteen. He thinks something is changing, not on the outside, on the inside. In the last 3 dungeons, he's felt something. A presence. Not monsters, not traps, something else, as if someone were watching him from the walls, from the ceiling, from the very structure of the dungeon, the system. He thinks about the system, about how it appeared 20 years ago, about how the dungeons opened up simultaneously all over the world, about how the classes, ranks, and ceilings are too precise to be a coincidence, too exact, like an engineering project, not a natural disaster. Someone designed this, someone installed the ceilings, someone decided that an E rank wouldn't become an A rank, and that someone is perhaps watching the anomaly that's breaking through those ceilings. Watching him. He's coming down from the mountain, heading into town. On the way, he buys breakfast for Clara, cinnamon rolls, as always. Naomi is waiting for him in the workshop. She's standing at the workbench holding a newspaper. Her expression is serious. She hands it to him. The front page, the Imperium Guild announces the biggest raid of the year. The target, Stagnation Gate. Number 31. An S-rank dungeon. 30 years of stagnation. The boss is predicted to have grown to the mythic level. Imperium is assembling a coalition of 3 guilds, 200 hunters, 15 S-rank, 3 SS rank, including Daniel himself. The operations budget is 3 billion won. Television will broadcast it live. Ethan reads and understands. This isn't just a raid, it's a show. Daniel wants to prove to the world that Imperium is still the dominant force, that the Gate Ghost is a petty pest, while real heroes storm real dungeons with cameras and flags. Politics, PR, money. At the bottom of the page is a small note. The Special Commission on the Gate Ghost case has narrowed the list of suspects down to 12 people. All 12 are connected to the production of magical equipment or the trade in cores. Ethan puts the newspaper on the table. 12 suspects. He's one of them. He must be. A small workshop with suspiciously high-quality items. An F-rank who works with cores as if he's been doing it his whole life. Haley Morgan jotted his name down in her notebook 2 months ago. She's surely already checked everything there is to check, and she's surely already found inconsistencies. The question is what she'll do about them. The answer comes the next day. Haley shows up at the workshop unannounced, alone. No colleagues, no folders, just a small voice recorder in her hands which she doesn't turn on. She says she's not here on business. She says she wants to order an analytical tool. She's heard that the workshop makes custom items. She needs an artifact for working with documents, something that will help her spot contradictions in texts and discrepancies in numbers. 2 weeks until the Imperium's raid on Gate 31. The city is buzzing. Ads are on every screen. Daniel Cho's face in golden armor. The slogan, "The Imperium protects, the Imperium conquers." Tickets for the spectator stands at the dungeon entrance, sold out in an hour. Analysts on talk shows are mapping out the assault strategy. 200 hunters, 3 echelons. The first wave breaks through the outer defenses. The second clears the halls. The third, led by Daniel, heads for the boss. The operations budget has risen to 4 billion. Sponsors are lining up. TV networks are fighting over broadcast rights. Ethan sits in his workshop, soldering an underwater storage drive for a fishing cooperative from the south. He's listening to the radio. The commentator breathlessly reports that Daniel Cho personally led 3 training raids on A-rank dungeons as preparation. He cleared each one in 2 hours. The public is thrilled. Ethan turns off the radio. He thinks, Gate number 31, 30 years of stagnation. The boss is predicted to be of a mythical level. 200 hunters is a lot, but 30 years of stagnation is also a lot. Over 30 years, an ecosystem has formed inside the dungeon. It's not just a boss and some minor monsters. It's a full-fledged army with a hierarchy, with tactics, with traps that have grown and become more complex over 3 decades. A standard raid assumes that the main threat is the boss. Kill the boss, and the dungeon collapses. But Ethan has cleared 9 stagnation gates over the past 6 months. He knows what the analysts on talk shows don't. In old dungeons, the boss isn't the only problem. Sometimes it isn't even the main one. The main problem is what's growing beneath the boss, the roots. A network of magical channels that, over decades, has sprouted through the dungeon's walls, floor, and ceiling, connecting it to the surface. If a raid kills the boss, but doesn't destroy the roots, the dungeon won't collapse. It will explode, a breach. All the energy accumulated over 30 years will surge outward, and the spectator stands at the entrance will find themselves at the epicenter. Ethan sets his soldering iron down on its stand. He stares at the wall. He's no hero. He's a craftsman from a small workshop. He has no obligations to the 200 Imperium hunters. No obligations to the spectators in the stands. No obligations to Daniel. But there will be ordinary people in those stands. Families, children. Those very F ranks and E ranks who came to watch the heroes because they themselves cannot become heroes. Those very people for whom he makes cheap barriers and storage units. He closes his eyes, opens them. The decision is made. He cannot stop the raid. He cannot reveal the truth about the roots, because to do so would require explaining where the F ranks know the inner workings of the stagnation dungeons. But he can do what he does best, solve the problem from the shadows, silently, at night. While Daniel struts in front of the cameras, Ethan will be down below, in the sewers, in tunnels not marked on any map, and he'll find the roots, and he'll destroy them. Ethan spends the next 2 weeks preparing. By day, he works in the workshop. By night, he studies the area around Gate 31. The dungeon is located beneath an industrial district in the north of the capital. The entrance is guarded. The perimeter is cordoned off, but Ethan doesn't go through the entrance. He goes through the sewers. His echolocation allows him to navigate in complete darkness. The seismic sensor from the Scorpion reveals the structure of the soil 20 meters around him. He finds the roots on the 3rd night. Thick, pulsating, dark crimson. They pierce the ground like the roots of an old oak. They extend from the underground in all directions for hundreds of meters. Some have already reached the foundations of residential buildings. Ethan touches one root, warm, alive, vibrating. Concentrated magic flows through it. 30 years of accumulation. If this ruptures, the northern district of the capital will cease to exist. Not just the spectator stands, the entire district. He begins to map it out. Every night, he traverses kilometers of underground tunnels. He marks the roots. He estimates their thickness. He measures their depth. In a week, he has a complete diagram. 47 main roots, 12 junction points where the roots converge into bundles, 3 main trunks that run straight to the surface. He won't be able to destroy all 47, not in a single night, but if he cuts through the 12 junction points simultaneously, the root system will lose its cohesion. The energy will dissipate into the ground instead of shooting upward. There will be no breakthrough. 12 points, 1 night, 1 person. He needs charges, not bombs, magical cutters. Devices that, when activated, release a directed pulse and sever the root, just as an axe severs a branch. He can make them from processed nuclei and Naomi's runes, but he needs 12 of them, and he needs a rune he can't make himself. The Rupture Rune. Naomi knows how to inscribe it. No one else in the workshop does. He goes to see her. Evening, the back porch, a cigarette, tea. He tells her he needs 12 rupture runes. On the cores he'll provide. By next Friday, Naomi looks at him. She stares at him for a long time. Then she asks why. Ethan remains silent. Naomi stubs out her cigarette.
She says that the rune of rupture is a combat rune.
She says she stopped making combat runes a long time ago. because the major guilds use them for things she doesn't want anything to do with. Ethan says these runes aren't for a guild. He says he can't explain. He says he's asking her to trust him. Naomi is silent for a minute. 2, then she says, "All right." She gets up, she goes to the forge. Ethan stays on the porch. He finishes his tea. Over the past year, Naomi hasn't once asked where he goes at night. She hasn't once asked where the bruises come from. She hasn't once asked where the projectiles he brings come from. She trusts him, silently, without questions, the way you trust a tool that's never let you down. He has no right to let her down. In the days leading up to the raid, 3 things happen. First, Sonia comes to the workshop and says she signed up for the raid, not as part of the main team, as part of the support group. Rank hunters who stand behind the cordon and hand out gear. She says she wants to see with her own eyes how they clear out a large dungeon. She says it will help her understand how to protect her village when the dungeon next to it starts to grow. Ethan listens and says nothing. Sonia will be near the dungeon on the night of the raid. If the roots burst through, she will be in the affected zone. Another reason not to let a breach happen. The second one, Gia calls and says her father is feeling better. For the first time in 3 years, he got out of bed on his own. He made it to the kitchen. He made himself some tea. He sat by the window. He just sat there and looked out at the street. Gia says this quickly as usual, but at the end, her voice breaks for half a second. She hangs up. Ethan looks at the phone and smiles. Third, that night, Ethan has a dream. An empty room, white walls, a chair in the center. A guy his age is sitting on the chair. The same face, the same hands, the same eyes, but different, calmer, sadder, quieter. The real Ethan's son, the one whose body he's currently inhabiting. The guy looks at him and says, "Take care of Clara for me." Ethan wants to answer. He wants to ask a question, but the dream ends. He wakes up on a narrow bed in a small room. Clara is sleeping behind the wall. An empty teacup sits on the nightstand. His hands, someone else's hands that have become his. He lies in the darkness and thinks about the guy from the dream, about the one who gave him this body, not by accident, deliberately. The real Ethan didn't want to live after he found out Mina was leaving. At the moment of awakening, his soul simply slipped away. It made room. And that space was taken by the soul of the dying guy from the alley. 2 Ethans. The same person in 2 versions of reality. The system detected a match. It broke down. It returned an empty record. He's not a random intruder. He's a planned glitch, or an unplanned one. He doesn't know yet. But he'll take care of Clara. That much he knows for sure. Raid day. The northern district of the capital, a cordon within a kilometer radius. The bleachers at the entrance to the underground are packed to the brim. Cameras, spotlights, journalists. Daniel Cho stands at the entrance in golden armor, giving an interview. Handsome, confident, invincible. Behind him, 200 hunters stand in battle formation. Mina stands in the medical tent. White coat, hands folded in front of her. She'll treat the wounded. That's her job, her role, her cage. Sonia stands behind the cordon with the support group. She's looking at the entrance to the dungeon. She grips the hilt of a cheap sword. Haley Morgan stands at the Special Commission's command post, 200 meters from the entrance. She's observing, taking notes, analyzing. Meanwhile, Ethan is already down below, in the sewers beneath the Northern District, in complete darkness, with a backpack on his back. Inside the backpack are 12 magical cutters, inscribed with Naomi's runes. In his hands is a map of the root system. He's working. Quickly, precisely, like a watchmaker, like a sapper. The first key point. Roots as thick as an arm, pulsating, glowing with a dark crimson light. He sets the cutter in place, secures it, activates the timer. 30 minutes, the second point. Third, fourth. He runs through the tunnels. Echolocation guides him. Seismic sensitivity shows where the ground is stable and where it might collapse. Night vision turns the darkness into a gray twilight. He sets the cutters one after another. 5th, 6th, 7th. Time is running out. Up above, the raid begins. He hears it through the thickness of the earth. A rumble, vibrations, explosions. The first wave has entered the underground. The battle has begun. 8th cutter, 9th, 10th. The ground trembles. The roots pulse faster. They sense the battle above. They're building up energy. They're getting ready. The 11th, Ethan is running 200 meters down the tunnel. A turn, another turn, the final junction, the deepest, the thickest. The roots here are as thick as a log. He sets up the 12th cutter, activates it. He glances at the timer. 4 minutes. He runs back. The tunnel exit is 300 meters away. He'll make it. 2 minutes. He bursts out of the tunnel into the sewer collector. 30 seconds. He climbs the stairs, the manhole, the surface, an alley behind the workshop. 10 seconds. He climbs out, slams the manhole cover shut. 0. 12 cutters fire simultaneously. Ethan feels it through his seismic sensitivity. 12 points, 12 pulses, 12 severed nodes. The root system crumbles. The energy that was supposed to shoot upward seeps into the ground. It dissipates. It melts away. The earth trembles slightly beneath his feet. 1 second, 2, then it subsides. That's it. Done. The Imperium raid is declared a triumph. Daniel Cho personally killed the boss of gate number 31, the mythical ice golem. The battle lasted 6 hours. Casualties? 23 wounded. 7 critically injured. Not a single casualty. Daniel emerges from the dungeon at dawn. Blood on his golden armor, sword in hand. Cameras capture every step. Spectators in the stands chant his name. Journalists call it the best raid of the decade. No one knows that a minute before the boss's death, the root system beneath the district was on the verge of exploding. No one knows that 12 cutters in the tunnels prevented the deaths of thousands of people. No one knows that Ethan's son is standing in an alley behind the workshop at that very moment, covered in mud and dust, with a cracked rib, watching as the flashes from the enemy raid fade over the city. Clara's waiting for him on the steps, not because she knows the truth, just because she was worried. He was gone for a long time. She hands him a thermos of tea, hot, sweet. Ethan sits down next to her. He takes a sip. TV anchors are already shouting about the Imperium's heroic feat. Daniel is giving an interview right at the entrance to the underground complex. Mina stands next to him and smiles. Professionally, beautiful, empty. Ethan takes another sip of tea and quietly says to himself, "One more day of being nobody." Clara replies without looking up, "You're not a nobody, little brother. You're just mine." They're sitting on the steps. The city is bustling. The tea is getting cold. In the morning, Ethan sleeps until noon. For the first time in a year, his body takes its toll, even with his regenerative abilities. He wakes up to a phone call. It's Naomi. She tells him to come over. Urgent. Ethan gets dressed and heads to the workshop. Naomi is standing at the workbench, watching the news on her tablet. Her face is stony. She hands the tablet to Ethan. On the screen is a statement from General Park, head of the Special Commission. The Special Commission has completed the first phase of its investigation into the Gate Ghost case. The list of suspects has been narrowed down to 5 people. All 5 will be summoned for official questioning within the week. Below that is a smaller headline. Special Commission analyst Haley Morgan has filed a report expressing her disagreement with the leadership's conclusions. The report has been rejected. Details are not being disclosed. Ethan sets the tablet down on the table. 5 suspects. He's one of them. Haley filed a dissenting report. That means her conclusions differ from General Park's. That means the general is conducting the investigation not where the facts lead, but where it's convenient. The question is, who does this benefit? The Imperium. Obviously, Daniel wants to find the ghost. General Park wants to please Daniel. Haley wants to find the truth. 3 vectors. 2 align. 1 does not. 2 days later, Ethan receives a subpoena, an official one, with the Special Commission's seal, to appear and give testimony. The subject: suspicion of an unauthorized raid on the dungeons. Ethan reads the summons over breakfast. Clara sees the envelope. She asks what it is. Ethan says it's a tax audit of the workshop. Clara believes him. She has no reason not to. The interrogation takes place in the Special Commission building. Gray walls, long corridors, an office on the 3rd floor. General Park is sitting at the desk. He's heavy-set. His face is red. His fingers are thick. There's a badge on his lapel. Ethan doesn't recognize it, but its shape resembles the symbol of the Imperium. Two investigators stand next to the general, and in the corner is Haley Morgan with a notepad with Ethan's magnifying glass in her pocket. She remains silent. The general begins. He asks questions: name, rank, class, guild, income, core suppliers, clients, dungeon visits. Ethan answers calmly, evenly, everything as per the records. F rank, no class. The quiet workshop, modest income. Doesn't visit dungeons, only that school internship a year and a half ago. The general pulls out an assessment amulet. Standard, government issued, more accurate than a guild one. He holds it up to Ethan. The screen flashes. Class blank. Rank F. Stats within the human range. The general puts the amulet away. He looks at Ethan. He looks at the results. Then at the investigators. He shrugs. The investigators ask a few more routine questions. Ethan answers, calmly, boredly. Like an F rank who has nothing to hide. The interrogation ends after 40 minutes. The general says Ethan is free to go. That the suspicions haven't been confirmed. That he can leave. Ethan stands up. He walks toward the door. In the hallway, Haley catches up to him. She walks beside him. She's silent. She stops by the elevator. She says quietly that General Park receives consulting fees from the Imperium, that the list of suspects was compiled to exclude people connected to major guilds and include small-time players, that the current investigation isn't being conducted to seek the truth, but to close the case with a convenient outcome. Ethan listens. Haley says that her dissenting report contained an analysis of the ghost's sweep patterns, time windows, geography, and logistics. All the facts pointed to a lone hunter with anomalous stats and deep knowledge of the dungeon's layout. Not a group, not a foreign agent, a single person. The report was rejected because it described a profile that, according to the laws of this world, cannot exist. A person without a class whose stats exceed the SS rank. Impossible, so the report must be wrong. That's what the general decided. Haley says she disagrees. That impossible is a matter of framework. That if the framework is incorrect, the impossible simply becomes unaccounted for. Ethan looks at her. She looks at him. The elevator arrives. The doors open. Haley says the magnifying glass works perfectly, that over the past week, she's found 14 falsified reports in the archives of major guilds. 3 of them belong to the Imperium. Ethan steps into the elevator. He turns around. He says that if she needs to update the runes on the magnifying glass, she can stop by the workshop anytime. The doors close. Haley stands in the hallway. She stares at the closed doors. Then she pulls the magnifying glass out of her pocket. She twirls it between her fingers. She puts it back. She turns and walks to her office. She has work to do. That evening, Ethan returns to the workshop. Naomi is waiting at the entrance. She asks how the interrogation went. Ethan says it went fine, that they let him go, that the suspicions weren't confirmed. Naomi nods. Then she says that while he was gone, a client came by, an unusual one, a man in his 50s, an expensive suit, no guild badge. He identified himself as a representative of a private fund. He said the fund was interested in the Quiet Workshop's technologies. He offered an investment, a large one, in exchange for exclusive manufacturing rights. Naomi turned him down. The man smiled and said they'd be back with a better offer. Ethan listens. He thinks. A nameless private foundation, investment in exchange for control, a standard takeover scheme. One of the big players wants to buy the workshop. The question is, who? And the question is, what will happen when they realize they can't buy it? That night, he doesn't go to the basement for the first time in a long while. Instead, he sits in the workshop and works on a new project, gloves for Clara version 2. The first pair of gloves with micro runes that suppressed tremors worked well, but Clara has grown. Her hands have gotten stronger. She needs gloves that don't just suppress the tremors, but also enhance her accuracy. Ethan takes the old gloves apart. He examines every rune, every seam, every joint. Then he starts over. New fabric, thinner, lighter, new runes. Naomi helped with the application, but the design is Ethan's. Each rune is positioned precisely over a finger joint. When she moves, the rune doesn't suppress the tremor, but channels it. It transforms the involuntary tremor into a micro-vibration that helps when mixing potions. A flaw becomes a tool. He finishes by dawn. He puts the gloves in a box. He'll give them to Clara in the morning. She'll put them on, she'll try them out, she'll look at her hands, and she'll realize that her tremor isn't a curse. It's a quirk that just needed to be fine-tuned, like any mechanism. Outside the window, dawn is breaking. The city is waking up. TV hosts are still discussing the Imperium's triumph. Daniel is still on the covers. Mina is still smiling at the cameras. And in a small workshop on the outskirts, a craftsman without class or rank is making gloves for a sister who considers herself useless. And that's more important than any raid. 2 years after the awakening, Quiet Workshop is now a chain. 3 locations in the capital. 1 in Kendo Province, 1 on the coast near the village of Sony. 32 employees, all former outcasts of the system. E ranks, F ranks, people with no prospects who weren't accepted by the major guilds. Now they make things that save lives. Storage devices, barriers, medical equipment, prosthetics for hunters who've lost limbs in dungeons. Every item is tailored to a specific person. Each bears Naomi's runes. Each performs better than its equivalent from a major manufacturer and costs 10 times less. Clara heads the alchemy department. 7 alchemists work under her. All are FA or E rank. Everyone works according to Clara's methods. Slowly, carefully. Every potion is as if it were the first. People come for Clara's potions not because they're cheap, but because they're better. An F-rank alchemist with trembling hands in new gloves has become a brand. A small one, quiet, but real. Gia manages the finances and logistics for the entire network. She devised a scaling model that allows the business to grow without sacrificing quality. Each new location trains its alchemists using Ethan's system. 6 points on a sheet of paper on the wall. Simple, accessible, reproducible. Gia's father walks on his own, slowly, with a cane. But he walks. Every morning, he steps out onto the balcony and drinks tea. The bracelet on his wrist pulses blue. Clara changes the stones every 2 weeks. Like clockwork, Sonia works as a courier and security guard for the workshop. She transports cargo between locations. She guards the warehouses. Her E rank is enough to handle small monsters on the roads. For larger ones, she calls Ethan. He tells her what to do. She does it. She's never once asked how he knows the habits of monsters he's never encountered. According to the records, Naomi is creating. The resonance rune from the Scorpion's core has become the basis for a new product line. Reinforced barriers, resonance storage units, harmonic stabilizers. People are buying her runes, not as add-ons to equipment, but as standalone products. For the first time in 20 years, blacksmith Naomi Pak is in demand not in spite of her talent, but because of it. She smokes less. She smiles a little more, just a tiny bit. But Ethan notices. Ethan. Stats: Strength 487, Dexterity 452, Stamina 431, Magic Reserve 267. He stopped counting. The numbers had long since exceeded the limits of any scale that exists in this world. In 2 years, he's cleared 23 stagnation gates. The Ghost of the Gates has become a legend. Documentaries, books, conspiracy theories. Some consider him a hero, others a terrorist. Still others, a myth. No one thinks of him as a 19-year-old guy with no class, who's actually 21, who buys cinnamon rolls for his sister every morning. A month ago, he began hunting mythic bosses, creatures from legends, ancient, enormous, with intelligence and strength that surpass anything this world has ever seen. The first mythical boss awaited him in a dungeon beneath a mountain range in the northwest, a fire dragon, not a metaphor. A real dragon. 30 meters from nose to tail, scales like molten metal, eyes like 2 suns, fire from its maw melted stone. The battle lasted 4 hours. Ethan suffered burns over 60% of his body. He broke both legs. He lost 3 liters of blood. His regeneration was working at its limit. He killed the dragon with a single blow to the heart. He pierced the scales in the only spot where they were thinner under the left paw, where the pulse beats. He found that spot after 3 hours of battle, 3 hours of analysis, 3 hours of calculations in his head while his body burned and broke. The jolt from the mythic boss was like a bolt of lightning. His entire body reorganized itself. Absolute fire resistance. Regeneration tripled. Scales. No, not scales. But his skin became tougher than steel. And something else. A voice. At the moment of the dragon's death, Ethan heard a voice. Not from outside. From within. Quiet, ancient, emotionless. You are one of us? 3 words, then silence. Ethan sat next to the dead dragon in a cave lit by a dying fire and thought, one of us. Who are we? Who are they? What do they know? What do they want? The voice didn't speak again, but Ethan knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Now, a month later, he stands on the roof of the workshop and looks out over the city at night. Down below, people are sleeping. Clara has fallen asleep at her alchemy table, her head resting on a test tube. Naomi is in the forge, finishing up an order that could have waited until morning, but can't because she's Naomi. Sonia is curled up on the couch in the break room under Ethan's jacket, which she snatched off the coat rack. Gia is at home reviewing reports. Haley is in the Special Commission's office reading documents under the light of a magnifying glass inscribed with Ethan's runes. Mina is lying in the dark in Daniel's apartment, clutching a small amulet in her palm. They're all part of his world. None of them know who he really is, or maybe they do, but they're keeping quiet. Ethan comes down from the roof. He heads to the kitchen. He reheats dinner for Naomi. He takes it to her in the forge. He sets the plate down next to the anvil. Naomi doesn't look up. She says thank you. She strikes the anvil with her hammer. Ethan covers Clara with a blanket. He adjusts the test tube so it won't fall. He heads for the exit. Sonia opens one eye. She asks in a sleepy voice where he's going. Ethan says he's going for a walk. Sonia closes her eye. She mutters that he shouldn't be long. He leaves. Night. The city sleeps. Ethan isn't heading to the dungeon. He's heading to Stagnation Gate number 9. An S-rank dungeon in the heart of the capital. The oldest, the most dangerous, 20 years of stagnation. According to forecasts, the boss has long since surpassed the mythic tier. Not a single guild in the world even considers it a target. This dungeon is considered impregnable. Ethan stands in front of the entrance, hands in his pockets, a sword on his back. That very one. With a hilt from Naomi, the hilt has been wrapped twice, custom fitted, polished by 1,000 knights. He looks at the entrance. Dark, cold, a scent of ancient magic wafts up from the depths. A heavy scent, thick, like oil. He senses a presence. Stronger than ever, not just watching, waiting. Something inside this dungeon is waiting for him. It knows about him, has known for a long time. A voice in his head said, "You are one of us." The answer to the question, who are we, lies there. Beyond that entrance, down below, in the very depths. Ethan pulls his hands out of his pockets. He cracks his knuckles. He grabs his sword and steps into the darkness. Dungeon number 9 is unlike anything Ethan has seen before. The first 100 meters look like an ordinary tunnel. Stone, moss, crystals. Then the walls change. The stone becomes smooth. Too smooth, not a natural formation. It's been carved. Someone carved this tunnel a long time ago, long before the rift. Ethan runs his hand along the wall, patterns beneath his fingers. Not runes, something older, symbols he doesn't recognize, but his body does. An inherited memory from dozens of slain monsters vibrates at the sight of these symbols, like a tuning fork next to the right note. He goes deeper. No monsters. Not a single one. In 20 years, not a single hunter has ventured beyond the first chamber. In the first chamber were monsters that A-rank raids used to kill. But now the chamber is empty. The monsters have retreated. They've made way. Or perhaps they were ordered to yield. The second hall, the third, the fourth, empty. It's quiet. Only the symbols on the walls glow with a soft white light as Ethan passes by. They react to him, to his legacy, to an anomaly in the system that shouldn't be there. After an hour's walk, the tunnel ends. Ethan steps out into a vast space. The ceiling is so high it's out of sight. The floor is made of black stone, polished to a mirror-like shine. Something stands in the center of the space. Not a monster, not a boss, a structure. A crystalline column 10 stories tall. Light emanates from it. Not magical, different, purer, older. Ethan steps closer. With every step, he feels the legacy within him resonate with the column. All inherited traits, all abilities, all fragments from hundreds of slain creatures vibrate in unison. The column is the source, not the source of the dungeon, the source of the system or one of the sources. At the base of the column stands a figure. At first, Ethan thinks it's a statue. Then the figure stirs. It raises its head. A face, human, or almost human. The features are too perfect. Eyes without pupils, pure white light, skin pale to the point of transparency. Lines are visible beneath it, channels, thousands of channels, like a circuit diagram on a microchip. The creature looks at Ethan. Ethan looks at the creature. It speaks in the same voice he heard after the dragon's death. "You are one of us." Ethan asks who they are. The creature answers. It says they are the architects, that they arrived long ago, long before humans, that they built the dungeons as farms. The magic that grows inside is a resource. The monsters are the guardians of that resource. The system is a tool of control. Ranks, classes, and caps are limitations, so that humans would gather magic but never grow powerful enough to threaten the architects. 20 years ago, the architects activated the dungeons. They gave humans the system. They gave them the illusion of power, classes, ranks, awakening. It's all a facade. The real goal, cultivating magic for harvest. Once a generation, the architects bring in the harvest. The next harvest is in 3 years. Ethan listens, he thinks, he analyzes. A farm. People are livestock. The system is the pen. Classes and ranks are ear tags. The cap is a fence that prevents the livestock from growing to the size of a herder. He asks why they're telling him this. The creature looks at him. It says that Ethan is an anomaly. The system was supposed to cull him at awakening. A blank tag isn't a glitch. It's a marker for destruction. But something went wrong. The part of the system that was supposed to kill him hit him instead. It hid him from the architects. It gave him a legacy instead of a class. It removed his ceiling instead of lowering him to 0. Someone within the system was acting against the architects and used Ethan as a weapon. Ethan asks who. The creature shakes its head. It says it doesn't know. It says it is itself part of the system, the guardian of this source, bound to the pillar for 20 years. Not an architect, a former human, the first awakened one, the one whom the system absorbed and transformed into a guardian. A former human. Ethan looks at the creature with new eyes. Beneath its transparent skin, a heart beats, a human heart, slow but alive. The creature says Ethan has a choice. The first, to continue growing, to inherit, to become stronger than the architects, to kill them, to take their place, become the new shepherd of a new flock. The second, destroy the pillar, destroy the system's source. All dungeons will collapse, all classes will vanish, all ranks will be reset to 0, all caps will collapse. People will lose the system, but they'll gain freedom. Magic will remain, but without restrictions, without caps, without ranks. Everyone will be able to grow. Every E rank can become an S. Every F rank can become anyone they want. Clara will be able to grow without a ceiling, without a sentence. The creature doesn't offer a third option. Ethan offers it himself. He doesn't want to be a shepherd. He doesn't want to destroy the system in one fell swoop because millions of people have built their lives on it and an instant collapse would kill more than it would save. He wants to remove the ceilings, to keep magic, to keep the dungeons, to keep classes as a guide rather than a sentence, but to remove the restrictions so that an E rank can become an A, so that an F rank can grow, so that the system stops being a pen and it becomes a ladder. The creature is silent for a long time. Then it says that this is possible. But to do this, the column must not be destroyed. It must be reconfigured. And for that, something is needed that only Ethan possesses: inheritance, an ability that absorbs and rebuilds. If Ethan touches the column and activates inheritance on it, then he will absorb the restraints, rewrite the system's code, remove the limits. But there's a price. Everything he's accumulated, all his stats, all his strength, all his speed, all his regeneration, all his echolocation, night vision, seismic sensitivity, fire resistance, scales, and combat intuition. It will all go into the column, dissolve, become part of the new system without limits. Ethan will return to zero, to those very 8s and 9s he started with. The blank tablet will be blank again. Truly blank. No hidden power, no secret numbers. Just a guy, just a master, with hands that know how to build and a mind that knows how to calculate. Ethan stands before the column. He looks at his hands. 2 years, hundreds of nights in the dungeons, hundreds of battles, hundreds of scars that have healed, thousands of monsters slain. Each one gave a drop. Each drop became a part of him. To give it all away. Everything he's become. All the strength that allowed him to protect the workshop, to protect Clara, to be the ghost of the gates. He thinks of Clara, an F-rank alchemist, capped forever. She'll never rise above that. She'll never become who she could be, because someone decided 20 years ago that people aren't supposed to grow. He thinks of Sona, an E-rank hunter, the ceiling. Forever, her brother died behind a flimsy barrier. She'll never be strong enough to protect her village without help from others. He thinks of Naomi, a B-rank blacksmith, the ceiling, her whole life, brilliant hands and a brilliant mind, limited by the letter above her head. He thinks of Mina, an A-rank saint, ceiling, a golden cage. Her class determined her fate, not her. He thinks of G, a D-rank healer, ceiling, whose father isn't being treated because it's not profitable. He thinks of Haley, of General Park, of Daniel, of the 300 teenagers at the awakening ceremony, of each one for whom the letter above their head has become a death sentence. He draws his sword, places it on the floor. Naomi's hilt glints in the light of the column. He approaches the column. Reaches out his hand. The creature at base looks at him. It quietly asks if he's ready. Ethan thinks for a second. Then he says, a blank blueprint is not nothing. It's a sheet of paper that no one has defaced yet. He touches the column. Light, white, absolute, without shadow, without a source, without direction. Ethan feels the legacy within him awaken. Not as usual, not a drop, a stream, a waterfall. Everything he'd accumulated over 2 years gushed out of him into the column. Strength, 487, became 400, 300, 200, 100. The numbers fell like water through his fingers. Dexterity was fading. Stamina was fading. Regeneration was fading. Echolocation was falling silent. Seismic sensitivity was dissolving. Night vision was dimming. One by one, the gifts of hundreds of monsters left his body and poured into the column. Pain, not physical, deeper, as if parts that had become him were being torn from him. Parts that for 2 years had been his body, his senses, his instincts. Every lost ability was a night in the dungeon, a battle, blood, fear, victory. It was all slipping away, and along with the flow into the column, new code was entering. The inheritance wasn't just giving away. It was rewriting. Every unit of power Ethan poured into the column became a line of new code. Ceilings were shattering. Restrictions melted away. Barriers between ranks cracked and crumbled. E rank could become D. D could become C. C could become B. And further and higher without limit, without a ceiling. For everyone, Ethan felt every change as if he were standing inside a huge machine, removing one plug after another. Each plug represented someone's broken life, someone's impossible dream, someone's ceiling overhead. He removed them one by one, and each time he grew weaker. The numbers dropped 50, 30, 20. His body went limp. His knees buckled. He fell. The column held him up, his hands stuck to the surface. The inheritance was working.
automatically, unstoppable. Like a program that cannot be interrupted, he hung from the column and felt the last shreds of strength slipping away. The dragon's fire resistance was the last to go. His body became ordinary, human, weak, the very same body he'd started out with. Strength 8, dexterity 9, stamina 7, magic reserve 3. Just like on the first day, and just like in a foreign body on the marble floor of the ceremonial hall.
The column flared up. The light shifted from white to gold, then to silver, then to transparent. A wave passed through the walls of the dungeon, through the stone, through the earth, through the foundations of buildings, through the city, through the country, through the world. A quiet wave that every awakened person on the planet felt. Not right away, not instantly, but over the next hour, every hunter in the world felt a quiet click inside themselves, as if a lock had opened, as if the ceiling above their head had parted, as if the walls of their cage had vanished. An E-rank swordsman in a small guild on the outskirts of town suddenly felt that he could grow. An F-rank archer in a coastal village felt her magic reserve stir and begin to expand. A D-rank healer in a provincial hospital noticed that his spells had become slightly stronger than yesterday. All over the world, quietly, unnoticed, ceilings collapsed. Clara woke up at her alchemy table. She raised her head, opened her status screen, stared at it for a long time. Then she called out to Naomi. Naomi came out of the smithy, opened her status screen, looked at it, set her hammer down on the workbench, stepped out onto the back porch, lit a cigarette. Her hands were shaking. Sonia jumped up from the couch. She grabbed her sword. She opened her status screen. She blinked for a long time. Then she laughed, loudly, loud enough for the entire second floor of the workshop to hear. At home, Gia dropped her coffee cup. She didn't notice. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the numbers that were changing right before her eyes. Haley, in the special commissions office, dropped her pen. She picked it up, dropped it again. Then she looked at Ethan's magnifying glass on the table, then out the window, then back at the magnifying glass. Mina, in Daniel's apartment, woke up. She clutched the amulet around her neck. She opened her status. Holy spellcaster, Class A, Cap None. She stared at those two words for a long time. Cap None. Then she began to cry. Quietly, pressing the amulet to her chest. Daniel Cho woke up to a flash in his own status. Dragon Knight. SS Legendary Cap. None. He didn't understand. Not right away. There had been no cap before, he thought. For the Legendary class, the cap is so high that it's practically unattainable. But this wasn't the same. Before, the ceiling was far away. Now it was gone entirely. A difference Daniel didn't realize right away, but he would, in a day, in a week, when an E-rank hunter from his guild suddenly started posting B-rank results in training, when the world began to change. Ethan lay on the floor at the base of the column. The pillar has gone dark, silent, dark, cold. The job is done. The guardian creature sits nearby. Its skin is no longer transparent. The channels beneath it have vanished. It looks like an ordinary person, not young, tired, with wrinkles around his eyes. He looks at Ethan and says, "Thank you." His voice is ordinary, human, hoarse. Ethan lies there staring at the ceiling, which he cannot see. His body aches. His whole body, every muscle, every bone, every nerve. He's weak again, ordinary again, a nobody again. He closes his eyes. He thinks. For 2 years, he was the strongest being in the world, and no one knew it. Now he's the weakest again, and again, no one knows. Symmetry. He laughs quietly. It hurts, but he laughs. 3 hours later, he gets up, slowly, on shaky legs. He picks up the sword from the floor. Naomi's hilt fits into his palm, as always, perfectly. The callus on his right hand is still there. The hilt is still tailored to her. Some things never change. He walks toward the exit, slowly, without echolocation, without night vision, without seismic sensitivity, in the dark, by touch, like an ordinary person. The guardian creature walks beside him, helping, supporting. 2 former prisoners of the system, make their way to the surface together. Dawn, the alley behind the workshop. Fresh air. The light stings their eyes. Ordinary eyes. Without night vision, Clara is sitting on the step. She isn't sleeping. She's waiting. A thermos of tea rests on her lap. Naomi is next to her, standing, smoking, silent. Sonia is nearby, sitting on the railing, swinging her legs. Gia is nearby, standing with a notebook pressed to her chest. Haley is nearby, standing slightly to the side. Her hands are in her jacket pockets. Mina is standing around the corner. She can't bring herself to approach, but she stands there. They're all here. All 7 of them, just like that evening at dinner. Clara sees him first. She stands up. The thermos almost falls. She runs toward him. She's small, pale. Her hands are shaking, but not from tremors, from relief. She grabs his hand, his ordinary, weak hand, without scales and without fire resistance. She pulls him toward the step. She sits him down. She hands him the thermos. The tea is hot, sweet, just like always. Naomi looks at him, at the mud, at the blood, at his pale face. She stubs out her cigarette. She tells him he's an idiot. She says that if he ever leaves for the night again without saying where he's going, she'll personally beat him to death with a hammer. Ethan smiles. Sonia jumps down from the railing. She sits down next to him, close, shoulder to shoulder. She doesn't say anything. She just sits there. Gia opens her notebook. She says that in the last hour, 417 calls have come in from clients.
Everyone is asking the same thing. What happened to their statuses? She says the world is going crazy. She says she needs to draft a press release.
She says this in a business-like voice, but her eyes are red. Haley walks over. She pulls a magnifying glass out of her pocket. She focuses it on Ethan. The runes don't glow because Ethan isn't lying. He is who he's always been, a master. No class, no rank, with hands that know how to assemble things, and a mind that knows how to calculate. Haley puts away the magnifying glass. She nods, as if she'd received an answer to a question she hadn't asked. Mina comes around the corner. She stands 5 meters away. She clutches the amulet around her neck. She says quietly that her ceiling has disappeared. She says that for the first time in 2 years, she feels like she has a choice. Ethan looks at her. He nods. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. Clara is sitting nearby. She props her cheek on her palm. She looks at her brother. She says, "Little brother, I've unlocked my status. There's no ceiling. I can grow." Ethan turns toward her. Clara looks at him. Her eyes are shining, but not from tears, from something else, because of what used to be impossible. Ethan takes her hand, small, warm, slightly trembling. He says she could always grow. It's just that before, someone wouldn't let her. Now they do. Clara is silent. Then she squeezes his hand tightly. Ethan sits on the step of a small workshop on the outskirts of the capital. Surrounding him are 6 women, each of whom has become a part of his world. Before him lies a city awakening to a new reality. No ceilings, no fences, no enclosures. His status is blank strength. 8, dexterity 9, just like on the first day. A blank stat sheet, a clean slate. But next to him stands the workshop. Workbenches in use, Naomi's runes, Clara's potions, Gia's calculations, Sonia's sword, Haley's magnifying glass, Mina's amulet. Everything is in place. Everything works. He gave up his strength, but he didn't give up what made him who he was. His hands, his mind. The skill that can't be measured by numbers in his stats. The care that doesn't require a rank. He takes a sip of tea, sets down the thermos, stands up. His legs are shaking. Everything hurts. But he stands up. He walks inside toward the workbench. On the workbench is an unfinished order, an underwater storage unit for a fishing cooperative from the south. He sat down at the workbench last night and didn't finish it. He'll finish it now. He picks up the soldering iron. His hands remember. His fingers remember. The callus on his right palm remembers. An empty sign above his head. Again. Just like on the first day, but now he knows. A blank blueprint isn't nothing. It's a sheet on which you can draw anything. He begins to work. Dungeon number 9 is unlike any of the 23 that Ethan has cleared in 2 years. Around the first turn, the walls change. The stone becomes smooth, polished, not natural, man-made. Someone carved these tunnels long before the rift, long before humans. There are patterns on the walls, not runes, older than runes, symbols Ethan doesn't recognize, but his body does. The inherited memory of hundreds of slain monsters vibrates at the sight of these symbols. Like a tuning fork, there are no monsters. Not a single one. The dungeon had been accumulating creatures for 20 years, and now they've all moved aside. Cleared the way. They've received an order. Ethan walks for an hour, 2, 3. The tunnel descends downward, deeper and deeper. The symbols on the walls glow white as he passes by. They react to the legacy, to an anomaly that shouldn't exist. The tunnel ends. Ethan steps out into the open. The ceiling is so high that his echolocation can't reach it. The floor, made of black stone, is polished to a mirror-like shine. In the center stands a crystalline column as tall as a 10-story building. Light emanates from it. Not magical, pure, more ancient. With every step toward the column, the legacy within Ethan resonates more strongly. All his abilities, all his attributes, every fragment from hundreds of beings vibrates in unison with the column, as if recognizing the source, as if they're returning home. At the base of the column stands a figure. At first, Ethan thinks it's a statue. Then the figure raises its head. A human face, almost. The features are too perfect. Eyes without pupils. White light instead of irises. Transparent skin. Beneath it, lines. Thousands of channels, like a microprocessor diagram. The creature speaks in the same voice Ethan heard after the dragon's death. "You're one of us." Ethan asks, "Who are you?" The creature replies. It says they are the architects, that they arrived long ago. They built the dungeons as farms. The magic inside is a resource. The monsters are the guards. The system is a tool of control. Ranks, classes, and ceilings are limitations, so that people would harvest magic but never grow strong enough to become a threat. 20 years ago, the dungeons were activated. People were given the system, an illusion of power, classes, ranks. Awakening. It's all a facade, a farm. Once a generation, the architects reap the harvest. The next harvest is in 3 years. Ethan listens. People are livestock. The system is a pin. Classes are tags. The cap is a fence. He asks why they're telling him this. The creature says that Ethan is an anomaly. A blank tag is a marker for destruction. The system was supposed to kill him at awakening, but a part of the system acted against the architects. It hid him, gave him a legacy instead of a class. Removed the ceiling instead of setting one. Used him as a weapon. The being says it isn't an architect itself. A former human. The first awakened one 20 years ago. The system absorbed him, remade him into a guardian of the column.
Bound him to the source. 20 years at the base of the crystal. Nameless, bodiless, almost without memory. Ethan looks at the creature.
A heart beats beneath its transparent skin. A human heart, slow but alive. The creature offers a choice. First, continue growing. Kill the architects. Take their place. A new shepherd for a new flock. Second, destroy the column. All the dungeons will collapse. All classes will vanish. Ranks will be reset to 0. Magic will remain, but without the system. Chaos, but freedom. Ethan stands before the pillar and thinks. A minute, 2, 3. Then he suggests a third option. Don't destroy it, reconfigure it, keep magic, keep the dungeons, keep the classes as a guide, but remove the ceilings so that E rank can become an A, so that an F rank can grow, so that the letter above one's head becomes a starting point rather than a sentence. The creature is silent, then it says that this is possible. Inheritance can rewrite the system's code. Ethan will touch the column. He will activate inheritance. He will absorb the limitations. He will rewrite the rules. He will remove the caps for everyone, for every awakened on the planet. The price. Everything accumulated over 2 years. Every unit of strength, every point of agility, every drop of regeneration, echolocation, night vision, fire resistance, seismic sensitivity, combat intuition. Every gift from every creature he's killed. It will all go into the column. It will become fuel for the reset. Ethan will return to 0. Strength 8, agility 9. A blank slate. Truly blank. Just a guy, just a master, with his hands in his head. No secret numbers, no hidden power. Ethan stands before the column. 2 years, hundreds of nights, hundreds of battles, thousands of slain monsters. Each left a drop. Each drop became part of him, to give it all away, to stop being the ghost of the gates, to stop being the strongest, to become who he was at the very beginning. A guy with someone else's hands and an empty badge. He thinks of Clara, an F-rank alchemist, stuck at that rank forever. She'll never grow up. She'll never become who she could be, because 20 years ago, someone decided that people aren't supposed to. He thinks of Sonia, an E-rank hunter, stuck at that level forever. Her brother died behind a flimsy barrier, and she'll never be strong enough to protect the village on her own. He thinks of Naomi, a genius with a B hanging over her head, of Mina in her golden A-rank cage, of Jai, whose father didn't receive treatment because it wasn't profitable, about Haley, whose findings are shelved, about the 300 teenagers at the awakening ceremony. About each and every one of them, he draws his sword, sets it on the floor. Naomi's hilt glints in the light of the column. He approaches. He reaches out his hand. The creature asks quietly if he is ready. Ethan says, "A blank blueprint is not nothing. It's a sheet of paper that no one has ruined yet." He touches the column. Light, white, absolute, without shadows, without direction, without a source. The legacy within Ethan awakens, not a drop, a torrent. Everything he had gathered over 2 years surged from his body into the column. Strength 487, 400, 300, 200, 100. The numbers fell like sand through his fingers. His agility melted away. Stamina was fading. Regeneration was dying out. Echolocation was falling silent. Night vision was dimming. One by one, the gifts of hundreds of monsters were leaving his body. Every lost ability was a night in the dungeon. Battle, fear, blood, victory. Each one was a part of him, a part of his body, a part of his senses. And each one was slipping away. Pain, not physical, deeper, as if organs were being torn from a living organism. Organs that had grown inside him over 2 years and had become a part of him. Fire resistance from the dragon meant 4 hours in a cave, where the walls were melting from the heat. Echolocation from the bats meant the first night he heard the void. Regeneration from the trolls meant the morning when the crack in his rib stopped hurting after an hour. All of this was fading away, and along with the flow, new code was entering the column. Inheritance wasn't just giving away, it was rewriting. Every unit of power became a line of a new rule. Ceilings were breaking, limits were melting away, the walls between ranks were crumbling to dust. E could become D, D could become C, C could become B, and so on, and higher, without limit. For every awakened one on the planet, the numbers dropped. 50, 30, 20. His body went limp, his knees buckled. He fell onto the column, his hands stuck to the surface. Inheritance worked automatically, like a program that cannot be stopped. He hung there and felt the last drops of power slipping away. Fire resistance was the last to go. His body became ordinary, weak, human, strength 8, dexterity 9, stamina 7, magic reserve 3, just like on the first day, just like on the marble floor of the ceremonial hall, the column flared up. The light turned from white to gold, then transparent. A wave passed through the walls, through the stone, through the ground, through the foundations, through the city, through the country, through the world, a silent wave felt by every awakened person on the planet, not instantly, over the course of an hour, a click inside, like a lock that opened, like a ceiling that parted, like the walls of a cage that dissolved. An E-rank swordsman in a small guild on the outskirts of the city felt that she could grow. An F-rank archer in a coastal village sensed her magic reserve tremble. A D-rank healer in a provincial hospital noticed that spells had grown stronger all over the world, quietly. Ceilings collapsed. Clara woke up at her alchemy table. She raised her head. She opened her status screen. She stared at it for a long time. Then she called out to Naomi. Naomi came out of the forge. She opened her status screen. She set down her hammer. She stepped out onto the porch. She lit a cigarette. Her hands were shaking for the first time in years. Sonia jumped up from the couch. She opened her status screen. She blinked. Then she laughed. Loudly. Loud enough for the whole second floor to hear. Gia dropped a cup at home. She didn't notice. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the numbers. Haley dropped a pen in her study. She looked at Ethan's magnifying glass, then out the window, then back at the magnifying glass. Mina woke up in her little studio. She clutched her amulet. She opened her status, ceiling, missing 2 words. She stared at them and cried, quietly, pressing the amulet to her chest. Daniel Cho woke up. He opened his status. Ceiling missing. He didn't understand, not right away. Before, the ceiling had been far away. Now, it was gone entirely. A difference he would come to realize later, when an E-rank hunter from his guild shows B-rank results. Rank results in training when the world begins to change. When it becomes clear that the letter above one's head is no longer a death sentence, and the entire economy built on a caste system of ranks begins to crack at the seams. Ethan lies on the floor at the base of the column. The column is dark, silent. The job is done. The guardian creature sits nearby. Its skin is no longer transparent. The channel lines have vanished. An ordinary man, not young. Tired. Wrinkles around his eyes. He says thank you. His voice is hoarse, human. Ethan lies there and looks up. His body aches. His whole body, every muscle. He is weak again, ordinary again, no one again. He closes his eyes. For 2 years, he was the strongest being in the world, and not a single soul knew it. Now, he is the weakest again. And once more, not a single soul will ever know. He laughs quietly. It hurts, but he laughs. 3 hours later, he gets up. On shaky legs, he picks up the sword from the floor. Naomi's hilt fits into his palm just as always. The callus is still there. The hilt is tailored to him. Some things never change. He walks toward the exit, without echolocation, without night vision, in the dark, by touch, like an ordinary person. The guardian creature walks beside him, helping him, holding her by the elbow. 2 former prisoners of the system make their way upstairs. Dawn, the alley behind the workshop, light stings her eyes, ordinary eyes, without night vision. It hurts. It's bright. It's beautiful. Clara is sitting on the workshop steps, a thermos on her lap. She isn't sleeping. She's waiting. Naomi is nearby, standing, a cigarette in her hand, unlit. Sonia is nearby, on the railing, swinging her legs. Her eyes are red. Gia is nearby, a notebook pressed to her chest. Haley is nearby, hands in her pockets. Slightly to the side, as always, Mina is around the corner. She can't bring herself to approach him, but she stands there, waiting. All 7 of them. Clara sees him first. She stands up. The thermos almost falls. She runs toward him, small, pale. She grabs his hand, an ordinary hand, weak, without scales, without fire resistance. She pulls him toward the step, sits him down, hands him the thermos. The tea is hot, sweet. Naomi lights a cigarette, takes a drag, says he's an idiot, says that if he leaves again at night without saying where he's going, she'll beat him to death with a hammer, the very same hammer he bought for her. Sonia jumps down from the railing, sits down next to him, shoulder to shoulder. She's silent. No words are needed. Gia opens her notebook. She says they've received 300 calls in the last hour. Everyone's asking what happened to the status updates. The world is going crazy. She needs to draft a press release. Her voice is businesslike. Her eyes are wet. Haley approaches. She pulls out a magnifying glass. She focuses it on Ethan. The runes don't glow. He isn't lying. He is who he's always been. Haley puts the magnifying glass away. She nods, as if she's received an answer.